Okay.
All of it.
Yeah,
I mean, there's explanations for every single one of those that just happen to go missing around him, roughly between the hours of 4 and 6 a.m. But, like, so I have texts from them, and I'm like, Hopkins, I thought maybe they were just like, hey, should we go get Hopkins? And then I'm like, hold on, wait a minute, hold up. You know, it's the Glenda the Good argument that was going on with that fun YouTube video. But like, hold on, this is real? So, of course, then, you know, I'm always doing it anyway, but then turn on SSJ, and the news is right there, and I'm like, okay, well, this is now a horse of a different color. Oh, how the turntables have turned for the Chiefs as they get DeAndre Hopkins, and they are now in a different spot wide receiver piece for this team moving forward. We'll talk a lot about that, obviously, as the show goes on. 913-912-4810, that's the text line to join us to be a part of the show. 913-912-4810 to join us to be a part of the show. Coming up later on this hour, we will talk with Jared Stillman, 102.5 The Game in Nashville. He's the host of Stillman and Company, and we will get his thoughts on what he sees from DeAndre Hopkins and maybe the Tennessee side to the finalizing the trade between the Chiefs and the Titans of the Chiefs sending L'Jarius Sneed and a fifth-rounder for DeAndre Hopkins and a third-rounder and taking on about $2 million of cap space for the Chiefs. Finalizing the deal between Veach and Rand Carthen for the Titans. That's the total deal, right? A Chiefs and Sneed and a fifth that could conditionalize up to a fourth, and they get back DeAndre Hopkins and a third. I like the deal because they're also saving the cap space with L'Jarius Sneed, and they aren't paying the full cap space of DeAndre Hopkins. They're only paying $2 million, essentially, $2 and change for him this year. That's a great deal, guys. You like it?
Yeah, that's a really good call. I didn't think of it that way, but it's even funnier because it is actually the exact same team with it being the Titans. Yeah, because, again, if you just go player for player, the answer would probably be no. But when you bring in the totality of the contracts involved, I think the answer is an obvious yes. So Jason, breaking it down that way, I'm all in.
Yeah. Jack, you like that third and sending the fifth, getting the third back, getting DeAndre Hopkins and, saving the cap space with L'Jarius Sneed?
How can you not? I mean, it's one of the quietest 1,000-yard seasons I can remember last year for DeAndre Hopkins. It's one thing if, DeAndre Hopkins was 2 or 3 years removed from a year like that, but we're talking about a guy that had over 1,000 yards last year, 7 touchdowns, catching passes from Ryan Tannehill and Will Levis. This year, it's been even more of an issue for the Titans to pick a quarterback. Will Levis struggled when he was starting, then he got banged up. Now Mason Rudolph is there. It's not going to surprise me whatsoever if DeAndre Hopkins is a much bigger impact than maybe people out there might think that he is.
Why do you think we weren't talking about DeAndre? Some were, but why do you think there wasn't as much conversation around Hopkins as there was with Amari Cooper Kupp the last 24 hours or so, and then Deontay Johnson? Because it seems like – I'll tell you the reason for me. The reason for me is that it felt like that train had come and gone, that there had been so much talk. It felt so Odell Beckham Jr.-ish. It felt very Ty Law-ish, even though that ended up happening. It felt all these different players throughout the years that you're like, oh, the Chiefs are rumored to be involved with this guy. Like, it has been 2 years of a DeAndre Hopkins conversation. Like, quite frankly, it was boring at that point. And we never even talked about it because it was more fresh or fresher to talk about a Cooper Kupp or an Amari Cooper or Deontay Johnson, that it seemed like it would be the same things rehashed about DeAndre Hopkins. Thinking about it this morning, like, I know that's why I didn't really talk much about DeAndre Hopkins. Why do you think there's been so much talk about these other receivers that Hopkins has sort of just been like on the back burner, like, oh yeah, there's DeAndre Hopkins too, but Deontay Johnson and Cooper Kupp and Amari Cooper? What are you guys' theories as to that?
Yeah, one, you're right. DeAndre Hopkins feels like we've talked about it enough over the past 4 seasons that we've hashed that out. 2, he's the oldest, being 32 years old. He had the hamstring injury, so I think a lot of people already wrote that off, although I wouldn't be shocked if the hamstring injury is all of a sudden magically healed as he plays against the Raiders. That would not surprise me. But I think that's the main thought is, okay, the contract, how is it going to fit? The contract doesn't make a ton of sense coming to Kansas City. Amari Cooper obviously did. If they don't go after Amari Cooper, who is younger, whose contract automatically worked with KC, well, then maybe they're not looking for a rent-a-player. So if you're looking for someone younger, that obviously leads us to believe that it would be a Deontay Johnson type of guy. So that almost, to me, X'd out DeAndre Hopkins. But again, with what was given up, I can't complain with what was given up and the fact that DeAndre Hopkins clearly makes this wide receiver room a lot better. I'm pretty darn thrilled.
Well, let me weigh in here at Big 12 Media Days, and one of the guys that we've been wanting to talk to at Big 12 Media Days, and we'll get his thoughts on this. Jerome Tang, head coach of Kansas State. What do you think of the DeAndre Hopkins trade to the Kansas City Chiefs? You like it?
Man, love it.
See?
Love it. You got, if you're Patrick Mahomes, you are fired up. And Kelsey right now, you got to be fired up. Woo, I know there's some pissed off owners out there. Like that one.
Have you guys thought about, when can college basketball start to get midseason trades going on? I mean, it's almost, there's some pro elements to this game already, but when do we get some midseason trades going on here? You guys could have used a midseason trade last year.
Yeah, we could have. You're right. We could have used the midseason, but man, yeah, I hope we don't get to that one.
Yeah,
I can handle a lot of things. I don't know. Man, that'd be a rough one.
That would be a little. Jerome Tang is our guest, head coach of the Kansas State Wildcats, and getting ready for year number 3 for you. How you feeling? Less than 2 weeks away now from getting this season underway.
Yeah, no, I feel great. Love our team. Love where we're heading. The growth we've made from the first day of practice to now, and especially in the last week. The growth that we've made, and just really excited. We have depth. And last year we didn't.
Yeah.
The first year we didn't have depth either, but we didn't have injuries. Last year, we had enough, but then we had injuries in life, right? Mm-hmm. And so this year our goal in recruiting was to have an abundance.
Yeah.
Right? And so that you can sustain an injury or a loss of a player and still be an NCAA tournament team, and I feel we've got that.
Is that one of the lessons from last year for you? I always wonder, a coach that's now, 1 seat over, those 3 feet, moving 1 seat over is a big change in life for coaches. And this is year number 3, and there's probably lessons from every season. Is that one of those to where, a lesson or something you learned from last year is to have that depth or find a balance between, we don't want 13 guys that all are fighting for playing time, right? Because then, there's only one basketball, but we also don't want 6, Yeah. What's the lesson maybe of last year for you?
Exactly what you said, that players determine playing time, not coaches. And so, what you want to have is, we don't get more timeouts. What I mean? Sometimes last year I looked down the bench and go, oh, crap, nobody sub in. We need a timeout. That's what it came, and this year, man, I'm going to be able to roll dudes through there.
How does it impact practice, too? I'd have to imagine that might be the biggest impact is, how do you improve in practice if you don't have enough bodies to go up against each other?
Yeah, and there's something to be said about, hey, this is the 8 guys going to be in the rotation,
mm-hmm.
and then these guys know what their roles
right.
are. But then there's also something to be said about, man, every day everybody's competing for playing
mm-hmm.
time, and maybe roles aren't quite as defined. And so there's a balance there that you have to have. I like it this way better right now.
Well, I remember back in 2012 when I was covering Kentucky and Louisville, and we would be able to check out practices from time to time, and I'd watch Anthony Davis and Terrence Jones in practice, and I'm like, that is tougher than any game they're playing. Yeah. Those guys in practice, those 2 guys right there are getting better in practice than any game, any competition they'll go up against, because those are the 2 best, power forward centers in the country. Yeah. And to watch them battle and try to grab rebounds, they made each other better. And I've always thought about that with college basketball and how much you can get out of practice, how much you can improve when you've got a number of guys. And when there are injuries that happen, sometimes it's getting through the season, but it's also development that may be lost along the way.
That's a great point, and it's funny that you mentioned the 2012 years, because our Baylor team in 2012, that's what this team reminds me of, and we played that Kentucky team in the Elite Eight.
In the Elite Eight, yeah.
And that Kentucky team beat Kansas in the national championship game.
Yep.
2 weeks before we had beaten Kansas in the Big 12 tournament. So, I really like our team.
So you this is one, and Jerome Tang is our guest. This team, this year kind of reminds you of that 2012 Jerome Tang Final Four. I get it, or Elite Eight, at least Elite Eight. But you kind of what is it about that Baylor team and this team that have some similarities?
The makeup of the team, we had Perry Jones, Quincy Miller, Quincy AC, Corey Jefferson, Anthony Jones.
Man, those are names, man. I love just hearing some of those
6'9",
names. Man.
6'10" with 7-foot wingspans.
Right.
You
cloned them, right? They were all cloned.
Man, they were wonderful. Well, you got Coleman Hawkins. And we've got Ugana. Mm-hmm. You've got David Gasson. You've got Achor Chor. We've got frontline guys that are long.
Yeah.
They're athletic. And
you like the rim protection and being able to have that sort of defense and challenging players to, okay, you may have beat us, but now go to the rim when you've got, Coleman and you've got Hugo and you've got you got some other guys.
Yeah,
there,
you got some guys back there that, and the length on the perimeter,
yeah.
right? It makes passes harder. But the team, we also had Pierre Jackson as a point guard. Little fast guy who go, and we got, Doug McDaniels, and we had some guys who could shoot it.
Yeah.
Brady Heslip, and, we got, Brendan Housen now, and C.J. Jones and Max Jones. And so I really like the makeup of our team.
The chemistry aspect of it's year 3, and it seems like it's 3 different rosters in 3 years. Not many guys returning, 3 of them. Is there a concern of the chemistry aspect, or is that where some of the lessons you've learned is how to maybe create that? I know Shark Week is a big thing. The grit is a big thing for you guys. Can you speed up the process of chemistry, I guess would be the question for a bunch of new guys.
In recruiting, if you can pinpoint the right kind of guys, right, that helps. Our staff did a great job of doing that. And the chemistry we have on our staff, 3 years together, and people, the kids feel it, right? Mm-hmm. They sense how much we love each other and how well we interact with each other, and they know what we want. The staff knows what I want, and so it trickles down, and then we create opportunities for these guys to share life with each other, right, and not just be on the court together. And so and we talk about it all the time, about relationships and what makes great relationships, and how do you develop great relationships, and we give them opportunities to do it. And so that really helps.
The retreats or the Shark Week, what do you think you get more out of with your team getting ready for a season?
It's a combination of both, right? So the retreat is about overcoming personal fears and your team being there to support you, and then being transparent and being vulnerable, willingness to do that. And then Shark Week is discovery, right?
Yeah.
You're discovering some things about yourself. Your teammate's still there to help you, but, laying it on your line for the teammate, right? Because if everybody doesn't make it, nobody makes it, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And so who's willing to sacrifice and care more about the person to the right and the left, and then one of the things, the reason I feel like we've been so successful in overtime is we're the best conditioned team in the country, and Shark Week helps with that. Yeah.
Visiting with Jerome Tang, Kansas State head basketball coach, and that's one of the things too, is you guys, the overtime wins, it was just phenomenal. It's a crazy stat there, but last year, I don't know if there's a looking back of man, you're so close. Can you do something here? How much second guessing there, because there was a 2-point loss, there's a 4-point loss, there's a 6-point loss,
two buzzer beater losses,
one in Texas Tech,
the Cincinnati game, second,
Texas Tech, which you got screwed, but that's fine. I said it, you didn't say it. That was not Jerome. That was me. I sneezed, I coughed, I got a little bit of allergies in the air here, Jerome. But I mean, is that one of those to where you just have to, move on, clear, or does that keep you up as a coach?
No,
what could I have done differently?
No, I third. I think it was the second to last offensive possession, the Cincinnati game. I should have called a timeout.
So you don't remember?
Just the last play. We should have been in a different defense.
Wow.
Of the Cincinnati game, the Texas Tech game, the sub at the free throw, when they got the offensive rebound on the free throw line, put back foul, it turned into a 5-point play in that possession, right? And it was a bad sub on my part. Should have had Will McNair in the game to rebound, not use that as a rest for him. And you just think about the little things, and that's what we ask the team to do, right? After every game, let's all look in the mirror. What could we have done better?
Yeah.
And those guys did a great job of trying to do that last year. I just didn't do enough to help them last year.
Is that something to where, Jerome Tang is our guest, is that something to where it can almost be torture for yourself, or is there actually something tangible to learn from, I should have made this substitution, so next time, but is that such a unique situation that it almost becomes like, you're just sort of racking your brain for what could I have done, but is there like something to tangibly take away to move forward and learn from those things, I guess?
Well, I think some of it is like, well, I asked the staff, right? Like, hey, what did y'all feel about this? What do you feel about this? And if I've got a couple guys saying, yeah, I thought this, then I've got to give them the freedom, right? And to be able to make that call.
Yeah.
There was one game. The other team was on a run, and I didn't feel their run.
Okay.
Right? I was thinking, but the staff was feeling it. They felt like we needed a timeout. And so, I asked them, hey, when I went back and watched the film, I was like, man, I should have ended this run. Did y'all feel it? And they were like, yeah. And I said, well, nobody said anything, Coach. Well, we didn't know what to do. I said, from now on, if y'all all feel that way, I want all of you, when that bucket goes in, to stand up like you would call the timeout. And that will be my cue that, I need in case I wasn't feeling it. And so, giving your staff, because you got people around me. You guys, I got smart dudes around me, man. And so giving them the courage and hearing what they're saying and what they're feeling in those moments. And sometimes you walk away, there's nothing you could have done. And sometimes you walk away and say, okay, this is the little tweak that's going to help us the next time.
Jerome Tang is our guest, Kansas State head basketball coach. They get ready for this season, 13 days away from starting college basketball. It's crazy how quickly it's come upon us. The ever-changing landscape is always something that's talked about. And, we have another, great respected coach that walks away and calls it quits and decides that it's maybe not for him. We've seen that before. There's also national basketball reporters that are saying they've heard from other coaches that may be doing that. As it's changed, like what's life been like for you? How have you adapted to it? And I mean, it's the landscape, it's reality. Maybe it'll change in a couple of years, but it seems like last year with the transfers coming in, the year before, and certainly this year with how many guys you brought in, that there's an embracing of it from your standpoint, as opposed to maybe some other coaches. I don't know. Everybody's got their own individual strategies as to how to build a roster.
Yeah, a lot of ways to do it, and but this is like out of necessity, right? Like you look at it. There's a bunch of unknowns out there, and but presidents want to win, athletic directors want to win. There's a huge money aspect to this thing, right? And you look at the coaches like that are not just the ones that are leaving, but the ones that are getting fired. Like they're firing football coaches in 6 games into the season, right? They're getting rid of. So it's like it's a win now thing. And so the approach we've taken is we're gonna build a roster every year until they give us a model that allows us to do something different. Right, and I'm thankful I have a staff and that helps me to be able to adapt to this, because I would prefer the model of you bring in some freshmen and or transfers that have to sit out a year and develop a relationship with them, and they learn the system, and I mean that's a terrific model for me, but it's not what works right now, nor the rules that apply right now. So what do we have to do? Put the best team together that we can at this point in time, and do the best that we can with them, and then see what we have next year. Like we have 9 guys who come back next year. I don't know if all 9 will, and so the goal is to bring them back and then add a few. But the nature of it is that you're going to lose some, and you have to be happy for them if they move on to something that they think is better for them. But then you also have to realize, man, there's some other guys out there that can come fill in, and so the dudes that we brought in, I am thankful and excited about. The ones that we lost, I miss them. I wish the best for him, but we're going to keep moving on.
Last one for you, Jerome Tang, head basketball coach for Kansas State. In your mind, you're envisioning your basketball team and these players, and they're playing basketball the way that you're just you're loving it. Like you can see it, it's all come together. They're doing it in your vision. What's that look like for this team?
Fast, aggressive, body movement, ball movement. Lots of catch and shoot shots, lots of assisted shots, defensively physical, long, deflections, causing turnovers and getting out and running, and just like a freedom, love, and joy, That's I write that on the board every day. Like, love, joy, and freedom, man. When people watch us, or I watch, I want to see our guys out there just playing with love, joy, and freedom.
And you think this team can get there?
Yeah, yes, they can. They've got the personalities, they've got the talent. We just have to keep injecting them with confidence and make the game simple for them.
Yeah, and maybe adding DeAndre Hopkins would help too.
Hey.
Who knows? Jerome Tang, head basketball coach at Kansas State. Thank you so much for stopping by. I appreciate it. Best of luck. I think your roster is one of the most fascinating rosters and your team in all of college basketball, and I can't wait to see what it looks like out on the court. So thank you so much for stopping by.
Man, thanks a lot. Go Cats.
Absolutely. There's Jerome Tang joining us. We'll take a timeout. We'll come back, and you know what? We will talk about DeAndre Hopkins a little bit as Jared Stillman from Nashville, 102.5 The Game in Nashville. We will catch up with him. We'll get his thoughts on what DeAndre Hopkins is, what he has left, and we'll do that on the other side of the break. More Zone next. talking some NFL football today as we wake up this morning. And DeAndre Hopkins is a Kansas City Chief. He is en route to Kansas City right now, we are told. And the plan is that the Chiefs will try to get him up to speed, and the plan is for him to play this weekend against the Raiders. Joining us now, Jared Stillman, 102.5 The Game. Stillman and Company host there in Nashville. Jared, what is up, brother? How are you, man?
I'm good. It's funny you're at Big 12 Media Days. I remember 2 years ago, it was at SEC Media Days, when the Titans signed DeAndre Hopkins as a free agent. Greg McElroy sat down, this book with ESPN, and I looked at him. I said, we're going to be talking about DeAndre to the Titans. You cool with that? McElroy said, yeah, I'm cool with that. I'm tired about talking about SEC football anyways. So it's almost like full circle. Here you are at Big 12 Media Days, ready to talk DeAndre to the Chiefs.
Yeah, no doubt, no doubt. And it's funny because a couple of years ago, we were wondering if we'd be talking about DeAndre to the Chiefs in a free agent deal. He was somebody the Chiefs wanted to go out and get. And a year ago, people were wondering if the Chiefs would trade for him, and here we are now. So let's talk about the player that DeAndre Hopkins is. There's been some questions the last couple of years. What does he have left? That was certainly a conversation around here when people were wondering if they were going to trade for him. So what have you seen from DeAndre Hopkins, and what kind of player are the Chiefs getting?
Well, let me tell you that whatever we've seen with the Titans, just go ahead and add 10 to 20%, and you'll get a better player than what they were with the Titans. And that goes for the best player on the team, Derrick Henry, who has gone to the Ravens and is now, there were a lot of questions around here about whether or not Derrick still had it or not. I was not one of the people questioning it, but there were questions about whether or not Derrick Henry still had it running behind this horrendous offensive line. Derrick Henry goes to a well-run organization and is arguably the same Derrick Henry he was that there were questions of whether or not he was going to come into Arrowhead and go win the AFC because of what he was capable of. Malik Willis was the worst player on the team, and they traded him to Green Bay, and he went 2-0 as the backup to Jordan Love, came in here and absolutely dropped the hammer on the Titans. So the rule of thumb right now with the Titans, for me, is if you get traded from the Titans, add 10 to 20% on it. With the receiver, I would say add 30 or 40, because their offensive line is so bad and their quarterback is just as terrible that I really don't know exactly what DeAndre still has. Last year, DeAndre Hopkins, with Ryan Tannehill as the quarterback, was the same DeAndre Hopkins. He was never a speed guy, so he was never a run down the field. He's not Xavier Worthy. Mm-hmm. But he's always been a creative, combative, catch kind of guy. The concern I'd have with DeAndre is he suffered a knee injury in training camp. This is pretty much all of training camp. And they were bringing him back slowly. It's something he's going to be dealing with, he said, throughout the course of the year. So that would be something that if I was going to be nervous, I'd be nervous about. But it's as Mike Tomlin said last year before they played, it's the same D-Hop. And so, I think Kansas City is getting a really good player, given where they are with their team, given the lack of options at receiver, and the fact that, again, Worthy's a down-the-field guy, so you don't need DeAndre Hopkins to run down the field. Mm-hmm. But DeAndre Hopkins is, I would say he's the L'Jarius Sneed of receivers. He's got a bad knee, but he can get it done, and he is going to be physical to the point that he may draw a penalty or two.
What a great reference, considering that Chiefs fans obviously very familiar with L'Jarius Sneed. But the Chiefs traded traded L'Jarius Sneed and a fifth rounder for a third rounder and DeAndre Hopkins. That seems like the full deal, right?
That is essentially what it's become.
It's crazy. And, Carthen and Veach are just working together the whole time.
It's going to be hard for me to not envision the Chiefs coming out on top in all of this. Yeah. A third-round pick is a top 100 pick, especially with the Titans. The Titans' third-round pick is really going to be more like a second-round pick. Kansas City's going to pick this upcoming year at like 62 and 65 because of where that Titans' third-round pick is probably going to end up being. And Tennessee's probably their fifth-round pick, with Kansas City's probably going to be more like a sixth-round pick. And, L'Jarius Sneed, look, I think L'Jarius Sneed's a good player, but what he's got to be here with the Titans, because the Titans are so bad, and what he's being paid to be, he's getting burned on pretty much a weekly basis, and now he's hurt. And, I was talking about the fact that he and Chidobe Awuzie, the corner from the Bengals they signed, were hurt this week. Well, it's great that they played the first 4 games or whatever, and now all of a sudden I've got Josh Allen and I don't have my best corners on the field. That doesn't do me any good. So I'm going to tell you right now, if you make that trade with Jarius Sneed in a 5th for DeAndre in a 3rd, I bet Kansas City comes out on top with all that.
Yeah, and now with Rashee Rice out, I mean, it became even more of an urgency that they got in somebody here to Kansas City. Juju Smith-Schuster had 130 yards in the game that he stepped in for Rashee Rice, hurt his hamstring after the bye week, which was unfortunate, played a little bit this last weekend, but they're looking for that guy who is a bigger-bodied guy. You mentioned Xavier Worthy can go down and stretch the field. DeAndre Hopkins is not that type of player. You mentioned the knee injury. That's exactly what I wanted to know about. I know they had been ramping up his playing time, and he had the highest number of snap count this past weekend, but then he comes out of the game, and Callahan was talking about a lower leg, an Achilles, a calf. That's certainly concerning for somebody in his 30s, but how serious do you think that injury is, or is that sort of well, just ask, how serious do you think that injury is with the knee injury he's already dealing with?
Well, the Titans right now are notorious for lying, so I don't read anything saying that it was lower leg soreness. You know, on the TV broadcast, you guys don't get the F Cruise at CBS anymore, but we do. And Jason McCourty and Tiki Barber were showing the shots of DeAndre Hopkins on the sideline, and they were basically speculating that this might be because they're going to try to trade him. And after the game, Callahan said, yeah, he was dealing with some legs. Well, after the game, Callahan said, yeah, I don't know what that was. I'll have to check. And then on Monday, Callahan said, yeah, he was dealing with some soreness. I think it was, again, they didn't want to come out and say, yeah, we were getting smoked by Buffalo. So we said, go ahead. Let's just go ahead and hold them out. This isn't baseball where you can pretend like a game doesn't matter. In baseball, you can say, yeah, we pulled him from the lineup because we're going to trade him. You can't do that in football because there's 17 of these, and you don't want to tell everybody that you're not trying to win. So I don't read anything into that. I do think that the knee injury was something that was a problem.
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't think it was like a big problem throughout the course of the year lately, but it was a problem at the beginning of the year, and I think that's behind him. And I think that, with Kansas City, this is the reason this deal got made. Titans fans are mad that the Titans ate the salary on the deal and only got a 5th-round pick.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm trying to tell Titans fans, this is the only deal that could have been made. This is the only deal. This is the only team that wanted Hopkins. This was probably the only team that needed Hopkins. And Kansas City is notorious for not being a big spender.
Yeah.
And that's why they didn't get DeAndre Hopkins last year, was because they didn't want to spend for DeAndre Hopkins. So this was the only deal that I think either team would have been willing to make, and I think the knee will be fine.
Yeah, I mean the salary cap, they're sitting there with $4 million of space right now.
Well, the cap space.
Yeah.
You know the cap space.
Absolutely. You love to talk about cap space and whether it exists or not. The salary cap. We've had those
I will
conversations.
say this: the what was the owner survey last year? F minus.
Yeah, for Clark Hunt. Yeah.
Yeah, the Clark Hunt cap is not fake. The NFL cap is fake. The Clark Hunt cap, that's not fake.
Yeah, the cash spending is where the Chiefs typically are lower in the NFL. They're always at the ceiling of the cap because that's just simply how most of the time you're dealing with it. But they've got $4 million of space right now. It's why they weren't really, to me, all that in on the Cooper Kupp deal, because the Rams weren't going to eat in the entire, they were going to owe Cooper Kupp like $10 million. They got $4 million of space. It wasn't going to work. This is such a perfect deal. Last one for you. One of the issues and a big issue last year for the Chiefs was the fact that the balls were dropped constantly. I mean, Mahomes would find open receivers. They couldn't catch the ball. Over the weekend, Sky Moore, former second-rounder, stepping in for Juju Smith-Schuster hurt. His one target, he drops the ball. That has been something he's had an issue with. Whether DeAndre Hopkins has it or not, or is the same guy or not. I've seen some videos today of, one-on-one against Sauce and him getting open. When the ball is thrown in his vicinity, is he still the guy that's going to come down with it?
Yeah, DeAndre Hopkins is the same DeAndre Hopkins. It's like, it's like pretty much anything in the NFL that's not speed-related. When the Titans signed DeAndre Hopkins, there were a lot of Titan fans that were worried because they had made a similar move for Julio Jones, although they traded a second-round pick for that. And it didn't work out. And I said, Julio's game was about athleticism, running past you and jumping over you. That's not DeAndre's game. That was never DeAndre's game. DeAndre's game, even in Houston, was he found a way to get open right there at the point of attack, and with the ball coming in there, he figured out ways to make combative catches. Now, there hasn't been a lot of evidence of him doing that this year, but that's because the quarterback is awful. So I can't say that it's for sure the same D-Hop, but it was last year with Ryan Tannehill, and I've got to believe – I think it's going to take him a little bit of time. You know, in Kansas City to necessarily – because he's never been in this kind of system before. But what I think he's going to be best at is he and Mahomes, veteran guys, he's going to tell Mahomes, throw it in my vicinity and I'll catch it. And Mahomes, you know as well as anybody, is not worried about, well, the play calls for 7 yards here and the ball comes out at this time. That's not his game. His game is I'm going to throw it in the vicinity and I'll trust that you'll make the play. And I think DeAndre Hopkins still has it, that if that ball's thrown in his vicinity, he will make a play on it.
Jared Stillman, 102.5 The Game there in Nashville, Stillman and Company. Jared, you're the man as always. Miss you, brother. And we'll catch up soon. Thank you for the time, man.
Absolutely. Miss you, too. And I miss when the Titans used to be good.
Jared Stillman, everybody. We take a timeout. We come back. More Zone right after this, hanging out at the Big 12 Media Days at T-Mobile. We continue with more.
o'clock. Thank you to Jerome Tang earlier this hour. Thank you to Jared Stillman as well, talking about the DeAndre Hopkins trade. Both actually talking about the DeAndre Hopkins trade. We mixed in from some Kansas State basketball with both Jerome Tang and Jared Stillman, oddly enough. No. But thank you for Jerome Tang stopping by. We're at the Big 12 Media Days here at T-Mobile Center. Coming up in about 13 days, I guess not even about, but 13 days when the college basketball season gets underway. Hoping to catch up with Bill Self later on in the show as well. All right, guys, what do you think of the conversation about DeAndre Hopkins in that, maybe not the athlete he used to be, but that's okay because that wasn't ever his game. But from Jared Stillman, if the ball's thrown in his direction, DeAndre Hopkins is still the guy that's going to come down with it, which ultimately – that's what matters, right? Like, they've got the athletes. He can find space. The difference with DeAndre Hopkins than what I think may be any receiver that Patrick Mahomes has thrown to is that so many receivers Mahomes throws to, whether they are schemed open or just like, a Tyreek Hill, they're so good at getting open in the route or schemed open, where DeAndre Hopkins may not gain as much separation, but when at the catch point or while the ball's in the air, his ability to then, it almost seems like that's where he gains more separation. And that comes down to more, I guess, timing and ball placement rather than he's open, I'm going to throw him the ball, he's going to catch it. That may take a little time. They got 11 weeks really to get him up to speed. But the most important thing for me is the fact that, one, he's going to catch the ball when it's thrown his way, and two, Jared called BS on the injury to DeAndre Hopkins in the game on Sunday and said, that's more of a, we're trading this guy. He's not going to play because apparently it's gone from an Achilles to a calf to a lower leg to maybe a hamstring to he's traded and he may play this weekend against the Raiders for a different team.
Yeah, a lower leg injury. Yeah, all that stuff's fantastic, and I was being a little bit of a Debbie Downer, which I'm thrilled by this move, so this is me trying to play the opposite side here. When have you seen, again, as you're mentioning, this style of player in an Andy Reid offense? When have you seen this style of receiver? And two, does Mahomes just not throw those 50-50 balls or those balls that maybe a receiver has less separation on? Or is it because he's not had that guy to throw to? It's like, is it the chicken or the egg? What is the reason? If I was being a little bit of a Debbie Downer, I'd say, again, even though he can come down with all those balls, will Mahomes throw those balls?
Yeah, that's a great question.
Dylan, I told you, I'm playing the opposite side here. I'm trying to make this a well-rounded conversation.
Me thinks Mahomes may be looking for whatever number Nuke is wearing out there on the field. Jack, what do you make of that as to what he's bringing to the table for this Chiefs team compared to maybe what the Chiefs have had in different receivers throughout Mahomes' career?
Yeah, I mean, he absolutely is a possession type of receiver where you're looking for him on third down, and that's something that at the game on Sunday, the Chiefs just don't have that if Travis Kelce's going to be bottled up, right? It'd be nice to say, well, you're looking for Worthy down the field, but I'm talking about the 3rd and 5, 3rd and 6, 3rd and 7. Your question becomes, who's going to get open or who does Patrick Mahomes want to get the ball to? Well, if you're facing a good defense and they double-team Travis Kelce or Travis Kelce's not running a first down route, you can't really turn to Noah Gray and Justin Watson and Worthy and those guys all the time. You can get creative, but this now takes some pressure off a lot of those guys because DeAndre Hopkins is going to be that guy that, hey, if it's one-on-one and you need to pick up that first down, even if he doesn't have a lot of separation, you're throwing the ball in his direction because he is going to be a guy that, if it's in his area, he's going to come down with it. And that's what this offense was severely missing without Rashee Rice, without Hollywood Brown. And now you can dream a little bit that come January, you're going to have Hopkins in this offense. You're going to have Hollywood Brown. You're going to have Pacheco. Defensively, you're going to have Charles Omenihu. So getting this group ready for that point in time, you can start to see now that path once again to being maybe by far and away the best team come January.
So last year when he played with Ryan Tannehill and when he played with Will Levis, here are the numbers in the what would be 9 games he played with Ryan Tannehill versus the 8 games with non-Ryan Tannehill. With Ryan Tannehill, he would have come out to over 17 games, 100 receptions, 970 yards, and only 2 touchdowns. but that was on 128 targets, so almost 80% catch rate thrown his way. With non-Ryan Tannehill, he would have had 147 targets with 68 receptions, but 1,200 yards and 13 touchdowns. But that would be a 46% catch rate. So I don't know. Riddle me that. They were targeting. They were peppering him with targets, but he wasn't catching a lot. But the more yards and touchdowns, I don't know. Cynthia Freeland, maybe she'll figure it out next. Holmes, Jack Johnson, Dylan Michaels heading up until 2 o'clock. We'll hear from the Chiefs later on this hour. Andy Reid, Patrick Mahomes. I wonder what the questions will be to those fellas at the podium today. And we'll hear them talk about DeAndre Hopkins, the big news of the day. We are hanging out at Big 12 Media Day at T-Mobile. Today we talked with Jerome Tang, Kansas State head basketball coach. We're hoping to catch up a little bit later on with Bill Self, head coach of the Kansas Jayhawks. And obviously we have talked a lot of NFL football today. We've gone to Nashville to talk with Jared Stillman about DeAndre Hopkins. Now we bring in Cynthia Freeland from NFL Network, our analytics expert, joining us on Wednesdays at 11 o'clock. Cynthia, welcome to the show. I appreciate it. And thank you for putting up with Sterling last week. That was very kind of you.
Sterling is great anytime. I hope everything's okay.
Yes, everything is perfectly fine. Apparently, there's a thing called walking
Jason,
pneumonia.
The shot.
What's up?
Shot at me?
What?
Whoa!
What are you talking about? What's wrong?
Whoa.
What did I do? I was just thanking our guest for doing something that's not easy to do. That's all.
I thought we had a lovely conversation.
I did. I agree. I did as well. And Cynthia, I loved the dogs interjecting. Clyde, I can't remember the other. I remember Clyde because of Clyde Edwards-Helaire, is why I remember Clyde's name. But what's your other dog's name?
Gordy. Gordy after Gordy.
Gordy,
Howe.
yes. Gordy Howe, yes. And Clyde after Clyde Edwards-Helaire, right?
That's right.
Yeah, absolutely, as it should be, but no, Sterling, she did a fantastic job, talking with you. I thought, it was a great conversation. So thank you, Cynthia, for doing that. But yeah, apparently there's something called walking pneumonia. I didn't know there were different modes of transportation for pneumonia, but it eventually grew into a wheelchair and now immobile and now gone pneumonia for my daughter. So that's good. Cynthia Freeland is, yes, it was not fun, but, you get through it. Cynthia Freeland is our guest. Okay, so let's talk about the big news today, Cynthia. We all woke up to DeAndre Hopkins being a Kansas City Chief. What's your reaction and your takeaway from the newest member of the Chiefs being DeAndre Hopkins?
I mean, I love it. I'm a big DeAndre Hopkins fan. I think sometimes, there's these people, he kind of has some Megatron-ness about him because he's one of just 3 wide receivers ever that is a 3-time first-team All-Pro but never has played in a conference championship. I mean, so I kind of like that. It feels like this is the kind of team he belongs to be on. This is the kind of team that can absolutely benefit from his ability, especially contested catches. Talk about a guy who, in his career, this has got to be music to his ears because – I don't mean to disrespect any of his former quarterbacks, but those were some hard balls to catch that he's caught. Trying to be nice here, but this is quite the upgrade for him. It's got to be really exciting, and he is so fun to watch.
What do you see from him? The question around him has been the last couple of years, what does he have left? Is he still DeAndre Hopkins of old? And, whether the Chiefs were going to sign him 2 years ago, whether they were going to trade for him last year, whether they were going to trade for him this year. I mean, he was a name that has been just so much permeating in the air around Kansas City Chiefs kingdom in talking about wide receivers that it almost became like a secondary thought. We're talking wide receivers and his name didn't really come up because it's we've played that song before. We've been down that road. Let's talk about these new hits that are here named Deontay Johnson or Amari Cooper or Cooper Kupp. Let's talk about these new songs that are in the rotation here. But the question has always been, what does he have left? What do you see from him? And is there really a good way to gauge what he is with what has been the quarterback play and the offensive line play for Tennessee this year?
Well, first of all, he's not dead. I mean, he's 32. He's not 100. That's the first thing. I think sometimes people forget that. My dad has a thing where he says,
although that might be an upgrade over some of the Chiefs wide receivers. I mean, it might be an upgrade if you just had to push somebody around in a casket. That might be an upgrade. I don't know. I'm joking.
Weekend at Bernie's.
Hey,
joking.
My
yes,
my
that's
dad
right.
says that eventually he'll be old enough to shoot his age. In golf. I think this is kind of, it's a joke here, right? But Hopkins is finally less expensive enough for the Chiefs to be able to add him at this point in the season. So
there it is. Yes.
The reality is he going to be the profile of guys that we usually see the Chiefs draft? No, he's not super young. The Chiefs have a type, right? They like really young burners. Absolutely. But that's for the draft. That's not for adding to the team at this point in the season. So being able to get a guy that has the amount of ability to create separation, the route running, it's kind of like Amari Cooper, right? Amari Cooper is not a burner. He's going to get open, and if you go rewatch some of the game, even last week, he had 11, he played he was targeted he had like, I don't know, he played like a quarter of the routes, a half of the routes, whatever. But he can create that extra like little juke step to the left or right to just get open a little bit more. That veteran presence and the ability to help create more space for everyone else on the field, that is what you're getting from DeAndre Hopkins. Go just Google like DeAndre Hopkins perimeter catches, like those perimeter, like right on the, like he can keep his toes in, the toe drag, swag, whatever you want to call it. That is what he does, and he's always been able to do that with guys who are throwing erratic balls his way. Now you have Patrick Mahomes. This is going to be fun. This is going to be super fun.
Yeah, I wonder if there's anybody in the world that woke up to the news happier than DeAndre Hopkins himself about, what his life is going to be now, because he's never played in a conference championship game, as you said, with the having the, quote, Megatron-ness to his game. I love that. Wrote it down. That was great. Hasn't played in a conference championship game. He plays now on the favorites to win the Super Bowl and with Patrick Mahomes. I went through and looked at his numbers last year with Ryan Tannehill and then without Ryan Tannehill. And it's interesting the difference in yards versus receptions versus target rate and catch rate. So what would be a 17-game season? So we played 8 games with Ryan Tannehill, or 9 games with Ryan Tannehill and 8 games without Ryan Tannehill. So over a 17-game season, the numbers that he put up would have come to 128 targets with Ryan Tannehill, 128 targets, 100 receptions, so almost 80% catch rate, but 970 yards and 2 touchdowns. Without Ryan Tannehill, it would have been 147 targets, so almost 20 more targets, for 68 catches, catch rate of 46%, for 1,200 yards and 13 touchdowns. So, it's like 40 or 32 fewer receptions for 1,200 or 200 more yards and 11 more touchdowns, and almost cut in half of the catch rate. How does can you sort of square that circle of figuring out that math problem as to all of a sudden his yards and touchdowns were way up, even though the receptions were down, even though the targets were way up, with a worse quarterback play than he had when he had Ryan Tannehill, which wasn't amazing, but still.
I mean, look at the same thing happened with his Texans quarterback situation. I mean, he had terrible situations there all around and was able to make something out of it. I mean, I think he's just really good at catching very hard to catch balls. Like, maybe he has a lot of practice at it. His 10,000 hours or whatever Malcolm Gladwell says were spent with some pretty bad circumstances. But I also think that, this can fall under the same sort of rule of thumb, if you will, that, somehow Devontae Adams' hamstring was completely fine when he plays for a quarterback that gives him a chance to really win some things, or he believes well. I think that could probably. I think he's going to be healthier in Kansas City. Just a hunch. I'm not a doctor though.
Yeah, it's weird how that happens sometimes, that guys are a little bit healthier. I know it didn't necessarily work out in Kansas City in the long run. They won a Super Bowl with him, and he helped. But Kadarius Toney, was on the inactive list because of injury every week with the Giants. The Chiefs trade for him, and he plays that weekend. Like, he got healthy really, really fast. It was odd how that happened.
These mysteries. DeAndre Hopkins' ability to catch balls under worse circumstances, medical conditions clearing up when you're happy with your quarterback and potentially could win a Super Bowl. These are all, they all belong in the, how does the Ripley's Believe It or Not, or whatever that museum is.
Yes, that's great. Cynthia Freeland is our guest, NFL Network analytics expert. As you look at some of the deals that have been made, Devontae Adams, Amari Cooper, DeAndre Hopkins, the last two specifically, Amari Cooper and DeAndre Hopkins, those were the more realistic ones, the trade value that the Chiefs may have been willing to give up, and obviously the cap space that they didn't have. Would it have mattered in your mind? Would you rather see, let's say all things being equal, does Amari Cooper make the Chiefs better? Does DeAndre Hopkins make the Chiefs better? Or is this 6 in one hand, half dozen in the other to you?
I think this one, I like both. I like both receivers a lot. It is kind of 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. I also think that, you're looking at who you're trading with and how you're trading with them. And I'm sure that there's probably some sort of more favorable relationship there that could be a long-term benefit that we haven't really considered yet. with the Titans versus with the Browns. Who knows, right? So there's some stuff I'm sure we don't know that makes it even more interesting. Not to say that they're equal human beings in all ways possible, but I do think for the value, I mean, Brett Veach is at it again.
Yeah, it's been great, and he has been really good at wheeling and dealing and, finding different players and finding guys at different parts of the roster, too. It's one of the things I want to talk about here in just a little bit and what we saw in the game against the 49ers over the weekend. But one of the other things I was thinking about is, getting ready to talk with you is that, we talk about Devontae Adams, Amari Cooper, DeAndre Hopkins. Cooper Kupp is – the Chiefs were talking with the Rams about Cooper Kupp. It didn't, work out. That Garrett Wilson, whether he's actually on the trade block or not, or taking, phone calls with him. Deontay Johnson's being talked about as a trade piece. I wonder, Cynthia, the NFL trade deadline was so silent for so long. Like, it just came and went like a leaf in the wind, and nobody really paid much attention to it. Whereas Major League Baseball's trade deadline was the biggest thing in the world. All right, who's going where? Like, all these teams are jockeying for position and all of that stuff. But the NFL trade deadline didn't have much juice to it. And now, like, it's got juice to it. We're seeing teams make deals and make trades at the trade deadline. And I wonder, Cynthia, this is just one theory, is this the entire life fantasy football playing generation that is now ascended to general manager is now in charge of these teams, and so we're seeing more of trade deadline wheeling and dealing, making some of those moves because these guys, for the first time, we're seeing guys who grew up their entire lives playing fantasy football.
I mean, I don't know if it's really fantasy football. I think it's more the way that we've changed the cap and the dynamics of how you have to, like the way our sport is played is, and look, I don't pretend to be any sort of expert about all of the changes that happened with COVID, with calling people up from your practice squad and what counts against what in which year. Like, it is some fun. I mean, I think that's a really fun job for, like, people who are even more nerdy than me. But I think a lot of it has to do with now you can do certain things that you couldn't do before, and that enables and empowers people to be able to, take advantage of someone else's mistake in terms of paying too much, or, for example, like I'm thinking about Amari Cooper with that, right? Like, I think the Browns are potentially considering, like, hitting the hard reset here and taking their medicine this year to prevent any longer-term issues from that Deshaun Watson contract. So I think a lot of it has to do with cap dynamics that I am not as well versed in as I potentially could be, and especially as we see, the injury call-ups every week. It's like, this guy's on IR, this guy's called up for the practice. Like, all that stuff is very confusing.
I'm going to write it down as, yes, absolutely, it's fantasy football impact on real NFL. I agree, Cynthia. I totally agree. Cynthia Freeland, NFL Network analytics expert. One of the things that I wanted to talk to you about was watching this 49ers game and, going back and looking at, what happened in the game and some of the plays and some of the players in the game that – of the 338 yards that the Chiefs picked up against the 49ers in a game where they scored 28 points, but they picked up 338 yards, Kareem Hunt, Carson Steele, Samaje Perine, Noah Gray, McCole Hardman, and Justin Watson picked up 257 of the 338. They got two interceptions from rookies, an interception from a guy who played one snap this entire year before getting on the field. Leo Chanel had a forced fumble, 4 tackles, a tackle for loss. Malik Herring had 2 quarterback hits, had a tackle for loss. This Chiefs team and dynasty is so much about, Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes and Kelsey and Chris Jones. But what I marvel at is what they've been doing with the guys from roster spot, let's say 25 to 53. And, you got 257 of 338 yards coming from a guy who was signed on September 17th, an undrafted free agent, a guy who was signed on August 30th, a 5th-round draft pick, a guy who they released or did not re-sign, then traded for, then brought back, and Justin Watson, who's, a value free agent that's like a 3rd or 4th or 5th wide receiver. That was essentially 80% of their yards that they picked up in the game against the 49ers, Cynthia.
I mean, that's hard to explain. Like to be fair, there's a certain element of, playing with successful teams. Like, I think Tom Brady said on the broadcast, he's like, I played with Jay Watt. He's my boy. Like, there is something to be said for people who have that, these, I'm not going to call them role players because that sounds mean, but like people who operate above average in terms of efficiency on a team where, this is a very above average team, and other places, perhaps that kind of result wouldn't be the same thing. It's hard to approximate those types of things. But look, what I think is really clear is that at this point in time, the communication between what someone wants to happen, obviously we all want to win games, but how do you want to win the game? What are the principles? What are the escape valves? What happens when it all goes to crap? Like, what do we do here? That is very clear, and everyone's rowing in the same direction. That is where teams get extra wins, even if they're not like I think about the Broncos. Their Broncos defense, they have that going on too. The Broncos offense is a little confusing, but like if you watch across the league, when people understand the assignment and they have the right pieces to execute the assignment, that helps out even at the average, quote unquote, average level of the team and average level of the player. Well, the Chiefs have no average, people, because the people who would be average on another team are above average on this team.
Yeah, that's. It's just they have a type, I guess, and they have really good coaches. We know that they put guys in position to succeed, and the guys go out there and play. So, yeah, it's been fascinating what this team has done, and being in a rare situation of paying a top end quarterback while winning games and being the lone undefeated team and winning 12 straight games since losing on Christmas Day to this Raiders team that they will be playing again. Cynthia Freeland, NFL Network analytics expert, what would your guess be as to the record that gets the 1 seed in the AFC? What would if the Chiefs are getting the number 1 seed, is 13-4 good enough? And some of that is, well, it depends on who they beat, who they lose to, obviously. But I ask it because the Chiefs have 2 games against the Raiders left, 2 against the Denver Broncos, 1 against Carolina. They play the Chargers at home still. They also have a game against the Bucks at home, but whether you want to count that or not. But like, there's 7 more games in there where you go, they should take care of business. That would give them 13. And then like honestly, if they're sitting 6-0, does 8-3 in the final 11 games get it done to be the number 1 seed at 14-3, even if they lose to Buffalo and Houston?
What's weird is the AFC feels either top or bottom heavy. There's really no middle class in the AFC this year. Yeah. So I agree that 13 sounds about right, but on some level, a little bit of like, is Miami going to help a Chief out with maybe knocking off one of the, like, maybe making it tough on the Bills in their next matchup? Is something going to happen where because I think it's, the Texans, they're in their division is interesting, and so it's like, between the Texans, the Bills, and the Chiefs, like it's going to be jockeying for position. Unfortunately, after that, it's like, and I know the Ravens are really good, but I'm excluding the AFC North because I think it is a better top to bottom. Ravens, Steelers, even the Bengals could have some kick in there. So let's take that division out of it. But the other ones, it's like, hello, anybody out there? So
is there a point in time maybe where you look at it and go, okay, maybe you can start talking about running the table? I said yesterday, I said November 11th. That would be the Monday of the Bills game, not after the Bills game, but heading into the Bills game. If they're 9-0, if they beat the Raiders, Bucks, and Broncos, they'd be 9-0. You'd have the Bills week, and I said I would start talking about it then, because it would be the conversation of if they get past the Bills this weekend and they're 10-0, then we're talking about a legit chance, because the toughest game they have left is at home against the Texans, and they've got some teams that they should take care of. That would be like one of the biggest hurdles. At what point, would there be like, okay, we can start to entertain this team, even though it's only 7 weeks of football, 6 games of running the table?
I mean, there's part of me that wants to say that this Chiefs team deserves to be the team that does the thing that history has not allowed to happen yet. And I and I mean it all the way to the end. I'm not even going to say it out loud because I'm not going to break any superstitious things, but I just feel like this is the team, these are the people, this is the staff who I'd like to look back when I'm older and be like, that team was awesome. And the third Super Bowl win in a row to the team that went undefeated, like that feels right. Like that just feels like it's right. However, I don't think that looking at it like that probably puts everyone in the best mindset, because then you feel like, if you don't do it, it's some sort of failure. So I don't know. There's some balance of psychology versus like going for history that I don't have the right instinct for in that regard. However, when you were talking about that, I do want them to have in a special play against the Bills team that reminds me of that Arizona stunner where the Bills lost with his last second DeAndre Hopkins catch. Just saying, that would be nice to reenact. So if they could do that for me, I think that would, let's not worry about let's go one game at a time, and we can think about week 9 there because that would just be very fun. But, all kidding aside, I don't know if the psychology works that way, but I will say, taking a macro level, I would really like to see that. And I do think this is a team that deserves to have that sort of cementing legacy in history, especially with all these injuries and kind of navigating it and wheeling and dealing to make sure all these players are coming in. It just feels special. So hard for me to argue with that, but I don't know if you can think like that.
Yeah, Cynthia Freeland is our guest, NFL Network analytics expert. Last one for you. What do you think of this Raiders team? Devontae Adams not there. Aiden O'Connell, who they went to, is out. Wilkins on the IR as well. And the whole Kermit the Frog puppet earlier this year thingy with we've been calling it, Cynthia, the it'll get handled when it gets handled week of NFL football for the Chiefs now against the Raiders. What do you make of this Raiders team, and if there's a score or an idea or a thought of how you think this game will go?
I just think revenge for Christmas, revenge for Kermit. Do they? First of all, I'm not even sure the Chiefs care, but let's just it's not a fun time to be a Raiders fan. But I will say one thing I'm looking for in this game specifically, that if you're a Chiefs fan and you want something to look for, the Brock Bowers situation is interesting, and that has been an area where the Chiefs have been vulnerable to the tight end position. And Brock Bowers, and maybe you're a Georgia fan. I don't know. I'm trying to find something positive for them because I don't have a lot of nice things to say about them right now, other than Max Crosby, I guess, and Brock Bowers. But Bowers he's really fun to watch. If you haven't seen him yet, it's just a really dynamic tight end. I don't even know if I want to call him that because he's doing things that, he's setting rookie records at the position. So that could be an interesting note for the defense to see how they handle Brock. I'm trying to find something here, but this is not the marquee game of the weekend. Let me just put it that way.
No, not at all. Do you think the Chiefs? Do you think they cover? I mean, that it's now down to it's back up to 10. It was at 10. It dropped to 9.5. It's now back up to 10. It seems like easy money. It seems like that. But what do you think of that line?
I mean, I don't really like double-digit lines because I prefer non-injury situations. So let's just run the football. And sometimes if you run the football a lot and they're going to try to run the football because the quarterback situations will interesting and they don't really have a lot. Jacoby Myers didn't even play last week. So I'm not even sure what's going on there. I think they'll have some gadget plays and tricks. So it's not to say, I just think a conservative game plan could be totally fine in this one. 10 feels, achievable, but I don't know. I just stay away from things like that. I'd rather look at, if I was tracking something in this game and I were not an employee of the NFL that could be watching something like that, I would probably be looking at, maybe something fun like Kareem Hunt's rushing yards number, which I think will be very high. So, focus on the positive. Don't worry about. Because sometimes you get a high number 10, that's it can easily be busted by some rando field goal, whatever.
Yeah, backdoor cover or something like that. You take the
right,
starters
something
out. They get
stupid like that, right?
You're up by 17. The starters come out. They get a touchdown and go for 2 just for S's and G's, and you end up winning by 9, but it wasn't even that close. Yeah, one of those things. Yeah.
So just go with Kareem Hunt numbers. That'll be great. You'll be happy with that. I mean, the amount of there's tons of fun next gen stats on him that we're talking about, basically, how he in 2 games has like had more rushing yards over expected on the interior part of the line than like a lot of other, like almost all other running backs, which is pretty funny. So
Wow.
go for that. Stay with the positive. Don't go stick it to them. Like go instead. Stay with the positive.
Yeah, I mean, and the Chiefs had more rushes or handoffs between the tackles in this game against the 49ers than they've had since 2016.
It's 23 of them.
23 times they handed off. It's crazy.
So.
I love the Kareem Hunt number. I was all over Noah Gray's number last week. He said on Friday, like, I'm going to take Noah Gray with the 25 plus, and also I'm going to put some more money on 40 plus. I'm going to ladder Kareem Hunt at 50, 60, 70, 80, and 90. And so, Sunday was fun. And I'll probably do the same thing this weekend with the Raiders game with Gray and Kareem. We'll see what happens.
Here's my fun stat that you can tell. It's not a stat. It's a fact. I didn't realize this because I don't pay attention to airport names, but did you know that they renamed McCarran, which is Vegas' airport, to Harry Reid? So you can just tell people, unconfirmed, it's Andy's cousin.
Might as well be. It's Arrowhead West, as I think MVS called it last year. We're heading out to Arrowhead West before the Super Bowl, and they've made
it's
it
Andy
that
Reid's
for sure.
cousin now. Harry Reid.
Great. Harry Reid. Cynthia Freeland, NFL Network analytics expert. Cynthia, as always, appreciate the time. Great stuff. We'll talk next week.
Absolutely. Enjoy the football.
Absolutely, you too. There's Cynthia Freeland, NFL Network analytics expert. We'll take a timeout. We'll come back, continue rolling. Andy Reid, Patrick Mahomes. We'll hear from McCole Hardman and Jaden Hicks. That comes up next. Press conferences with the Chiefs. We'll take a timeout. We're hanging out at Big 12 Basketball Media Days at T-Mobile. We talked with Jerome Tang earlier in the show. Hoping to catch up with Bill Self a little bit later on. More Zone right after this. 640 Sports Podcast Network and also ESPN Radio, Athlon Sports, and a man who's located in Nashville as well and covers the Tennessee Titans. So maybe we ask him about DeAndre Hopkins as well and see what DeAndre Hopkins has left in the tank from Braden Gall's perspective. We talked with Jared Stillman earlier in the show from Nashville and got his thoughts on that, what he thought DeAndre Hopkins would bring to the table for the Kansas City Chiefs. And also we talked with Jerome Tang earlier in the show as we're hanging out at Big 12 Media Day. And we continued to talk about DeAndre Hopkins joining the Kansas City Chiefs. And, guys, as we look at this offense, like, they score 26 points 2 weeks ago or 2 games ago. They had that bye week. But then 28 points this last week against San Francisco. And even looking at this offense, when Juju Smith-Schuster goes down, they're able to do that with, that group of wide receivers. But as I've said, at the beginning of the show, like this to me is the Chiefs have 11 weeks to get DeAndre Hopkins up to speed. This is not like, okay, I'm surprised that they're even talking about him playing this weekend. Like there was the report that the plan is DeAndre Hopkins is en route. I don't know if he's arrived by now or not, but the plan is to try to get him up to speed as much as possible and play against the Raiders this weekend. That's a surprise, one, because of the knee injury and, him having the MCL tear back in training camp and having, to recover from that and it being something that the Titans were bringing along slowly, but also like, it's January for me that I'm worried about DeAndre Hopkins. So if you get DeAndre Hopkins, you get Isaiah Pacheco back, you get Hollywood Brown back for the playoffs. I mean, these last 4 games, they didn't have Isaiah Pacheco. Those are 3 guys you'd be adding to the mix to this offense in January when, you'll be playing your most important football, that they've scored 27 points, average the last 2 weeks without those guys.
Yeah, I mean, I get where you're coming from with DeAndre Hopkins, but he has played in 6 of the 7 games so far this season. The one he missed was last week, and it does sound more or less like it's hey, they know he's going to be traded. Let's just be extra precautionary here. I'm sure when he gets to KC, that leg is going to be fine. And play doesn't mean he's playing 80% of the snaps. Play doesn't mean he's going out there. It could be one of those Josh Gordon situations where it's like, hey, yeah, he's playing 5 snaps. We'll throw him the ball in the red zone to get him just make the fans happy and get his feet wet underneath him.
Like one touchdown that he got.
Exactly. But that's what I could see happening against the Raiders. One of those situations where, yeah, he's active, yeah, he's playing, but it might be about 10 to 12 snaps.
Yeah, I could see that being the case, and that would make sense. It's just a surprise that it's like, okay, let's get him in, because this is not a week that he's needed. Right? I mean, they don't need him this week. I think they can do the same thing they did against the 49ers and hand off and run the football and be a power game. And, Kelsey when need be, Xavier Worthy when need be, Justin Watson when need be, Noah Gray, when need be, and score enough points.
Can I give a
and
slight
that
pushback,
offense
Jason?
for the Raiders isn't going to do anything. Yeah, pushback.
I'm going to push back because, I completely understand and agree with what you're saying. Didn't we say the exact same thing on Christmas last year? Haven't you said the same thing about when the Chiefs went into Tennessee or they lost to the Colts, where you don't need these guys? They're going to wax them either way. And next thing you know, you're losing that game, a game that you should not have lost. It's the NFL. It's any given Sunday. So I get where you're coming from. I was like, yeah, the Chiefs don't need him. Well, they thought they wouldn't need anyone on Christmas last year, and they lost that game without them. The Raiders throwing a completed pass from the second half. It's football. It happens. Why not have an extra weapon? Why not have an extra guy, someone that at least can start to get integrated into the offense?
I mean, if they think he's good to go, then I'll trust their judgment on being good to go. I think this is just a different Raiders team right now than even last year, and I think there's the motivation of we're the last team to beat them, the recipe and the Kermit the Frog stuff that I think the Chiefs will handle business. It's interesting because I think the Raiders are going to want to be physical against the Chiefs, and I think the Chiefs are going to have to match that. I just don't think DeAndre Hopkins should be the difference of winning or losing this weekend against the Raiders, and I'm not sure DeAndre Hopkins would have made a difference last year against the Raiders in that particular game.
True.
When they were still at home opening up presents and not actually at the game. We'll take a timeout. We'll come back. We'll hear from Andy Reid. We'll hear from Patrick Mahomes. We'll hear from Mecole Hardman, and we will hear from Jaden Hicks coming up next. Of course, he had a big day against San Francisco. That's what he does. I mean, it's like death taxes, McCole Hardman torturing the 49ers and 49ers fans and ripping their heart out. It's just what he. You know what? If for nothing else, whenever the Chiefs play the 49ers in the future, McCole Hardman should be on the field. He may be 70 years old. I don't know. Call him up, sign him, put him out there. Also, Jaden Hicks, his first ever interception in the NFL. Already won more than Trent McDuffie. It's just, I mean, I'm not going to get over it until Trent McDuffie gets an interception.
Why do you hate
all
Trent
the different
McDuffie?
people? No, it's just amazing. Like, this guy is so freaking good. How many, like, honestly, like, think about that. Like, just sitting here talking, I just said, I was going to say, an all-pro receiver, but how many guys make all-pro with 0 interceptions? Like, think about that. Like,
Colin
has
Saunders
in his
has more
career.
interceptions. Colin Saunders has more.
Right. But a cornerback that's an all-pro first team with 0 interceptions shows you the things that he does outside of, things falling in his way or a ball getting tipped and coming to him the way that, CRW and Jaden Hicks and those guys, right place, right time. And Trent McDuffie is often in the right place. It's just he may not be getting picked on or thrown towards, but it's an amazing stat until that gets broken, until McDuffie gets that interception. It's just unbelievable that, you've got these guys out there that have all of these different picks for the Chiefs and not their best cornerback.
Well, Jason,
it's
though,
crazy.
It also might be a Dave Merritt Spags game plan. I mean, Charvarius Ward was outstanding, but he never was an interception guy. I don't think L'Jarius Sneed was known as an interception guy. He had a few, but like the Chiefs, I don't think, value that risk reward quite the way some other teams do. They just expect you to play damn good defense. They expect you to be in the wide receiver's hip pocket, and the best Chiefs cornerbacks, that's what they do, and Trent McDuffie is that guy.
Well, it's interesting, and I know there was a different defensive coaching staff when Marcus Peters was here, but the boom bust, the risk reward of, hey, he's going to get beat a decent amount of times, but man, he's going to make a play on the ball, he's going to get interceptions, he's going to do some of those things and change a game. Obviously different coaching staff, but I don't think this coaching staff would be down with that. Now, Spagnuolo was okay with some of the penalties for L'Jarius Sneed, as he said it's the price of doing business with Sneed because we play physical football. He wouldn't be okay with L'Jarius Sneed having 3 interceptions but giving up 9 touchdowns in a season. Well, he had those 3 interceptions. Yeah, but it's like in baseball. You're driving in more than you let in. Okay, then you're a net positive for this team, even if your defense isn't all that great. It's one of those things, and I think you're right. I think it's more of the, that solid play because oddly enough, it's the other guys that are getting interceptions. Like Joshua Williams has 2 or 3. Jalen Watson has 3 interceptions in his career. Jaden Hicks has 1. Brian Cook has 1 or 2. Roland Wallace has 1. Yeah. I mean, it is unbelievable that Najee Johnson's going to get him an interception this weekend. Book it, Najee Johnson.
Spags would be driven crazy by Trayvon Diggs. Trayvon Diggs is like Spags' nightmare.
Yeah, let me get interceptions or get beat. I mean, it's one of the two. Yeah, no, I'll take the guy that's just going to lock him up and lock him down. I would love for somebody to go back and look, Curtis, of how many All-Pro cornerbacks have ever been first-team All-Pro with 0 interceptions in a season. How many times that has ever happened before? We know it's happened at least once, and that is Trent McDuffie. And I'm guessing it'll probably happen again if he remains healthy the rest of the year and doesn't get an interception. I'm going to go out on a limb. I think he gets one this year. I think he does, Sterling. I think of the 11 games remaining, I think he gets one. I'm going to go out on a limb. So I'm going to do that. One of the best cornerbacks in the NFL will get an interception. So that's what I'm going with, whether you agree or not. You can disagree all you want, but that's what I'm doing. I do wonder if we'll hear Andy Reid weigh in on DeAndre Hopkins since that deal may not be completely finalized yet. We'll see. Here's Andy Reid.
Injuries go. Mike Dana will not practice today, and Juju won't practice today. Both are getting better, but we'll just have to see how things go as we go forward. Look for the challenge of playing the Raiders. Good football team. Antonio does a nice job with that group, as do his coordinators, Patrick, Luke, and then Tom, who you guys know. And they've got Marv Lewis on that staff too, who he and I go way back a lot of years, so knowing each other, but all good football coaches, and they've got good players. So we got to make sure we have a good week of practice, and we'll get that going today. So that time's yours.
Coach, I know nothing's official about DeAndre Hopkins. The league tweeted out he's joining your team. Maybe not specifically about him being on your team, but you've competed against him many times over the years. What kind of player has he been to compete against?
Yeah, Veach is dealing with all that, so I'm hush on that. Yeah.
With Juju, did he just maybe push it too hard to try to get back and play? I know he wanted to play. Probably be a little more cautious with him now, or?
Yeah, we'll be cautious with him. Yeah, well, we thought we were being cautious the last time, so with him, but this time it's a little bit worse. So, yeah.
Just around the league, there's been a lot of injuries with a lot of wide receivers. Do you have any kind of pulse on just how wide it's been?
I mean, these things are kind of secular. They happen like that. But I don't have an answer for you now. Yeah.
Andy Hopkins is not here, and he will not be practicing today. Is that right?
I know nothing.
Okay.
Andy, last time you guys played the Raiders, obviously, last time you lost, it's probably hard to summarize, but what was it that you pushed off from after that game that sort of reset your team late last year?
Yeah, they came in and got after us, and that's their personality, and so we didn't handle that the right way, but I thought we'd learn from it and got better for it, which was the important thing after something like that.
It helped you know what your own strengths and weaknesses were a little more, and how to contour to that. Is that fair to say?
I don't think necessarily. I just think we could have been a little bit more ready, which is my responsibility, and that part didn't take place.
Coach, Kareem Hunt and you guys called runs between the tackles record times in 16. How tough is somewhat of an identity shift on the fly when circumstances call for some of these guys?
Yeah, well, I mean, in his case, I mean, it was important. I mean, for him for himself, to come in and do well. And he had stayed in shape, which I think was important. And he's been able to contribute and help us keep moving forward. And I think everybody appreciates that part. But I think most of all, he was on a mission to get that, make it right. And so my hat goes off to the kid for that.
Andy, with the players you have on board, we're about to talk to Nicole and Jaden on both sides of the ball. Just what are you seeing out of the confidence level on the receivers that you presently have on the roster, and then obviously the defensive matchup?
Yeah, sure. I like the receivers we have. I've mentioned that before. We've got guys that can step in and play, and everybody has confidence in them. So, that we're fortunate that way. I think Beach has done a good job with all that, and giving everybody, all the coaches an opportunity to be successful because of that. And these guys, opportunities, when they arise, they've got to take advantage of them, and that's what they do. And people believe it.
Andy, back to Kareem Hunt for a second. How have you seen him make a difference in the running game? Are there specific ways you've seen him come in and give you guys a lift that way?
Yeah, well, I mean, we had Pop before that, and then the guys that stepped in for Pop did a nice job. So, and rotated with him. And so we've, he's just a different style. They're all of them are actually different, and but he's got that pounded in at you style, and it's helped us, that way. So you lose a great player like we did with Pacheco, and these other guys step up, and Kareem come off the street and help us out. That's great, and we still have Hilaire sitting back there, who's a great player too. So it's a good position to be in from a coach's standpoint.
AD, with the player of Max Crosby's caliber, what do you kind of have to be mindful of whatever your call plays there?
Yeah, I mean everything. He's a great player. He's one of the best in the business of what he does, and he's going to give you an honest down every down. So he doesn't take plays off, and our guys know that and respect the heck out of him. So you got to be ready to play 4 quarters against him.
Todd, Coach, you guys maybe in June you thought your roster was going to be there before the injuries. You probably had a whole big scheme plan for the season, and as Pete mentioned, on the fly you've had to kind of change a lot of things. I know you love drawing up plays and you work tirelessly. Has this been a different kind of year to do that? And who have maybe you leaned on the staff to kind of work through all of that stuff?
No, all the coaches do a great job. We really haven't had to change it much. I mean, the guys have stepped in and done a nice job. So we've been able to ride that part of it. But I'm fortunate to have coaches that are great teachers and motivators. The guys like to play for them. And so it's, and they want to do well. The players want to do well, the coaches want to do well. So I'm fortunate that way.
Andy, with Hollywood Brown, I mean, when he first got injured and had the re-injury, I know that the timeline was pretty lengthy. I just wondered in the past few weeks, have you had any more finite timeline about the possibility that he's back for you this year?
Yeah, he's doing great. That I can tell you. He's doing great. Seems to be on schedule or a little bit ahead of schedule. So I can't tell you that. I mean, I don't know that. It's going to be a while though. So, but he's a relentless worker. I can tell you that much, and I can tell you he's doing very well for what he's got there. Yeah.
Thanks, Coach.
Yep. Okay, good.
All right, there's Andy Reid, and as I joked in the break, and I wish I'd have said it on the air, of like, hey, Andy, DeAndre Hopkins, Veach is dealing with that. I can't really say anything. But he says, Veach is dealing with all that. I'm hush on it. And then Adam Teicher, a follow-up, will DeAndre Hopkins be at practice today? Is he in town? Quote, I know nothing.
Lebo even asked, he's like, I know you can't talk, but what was he like going up against him?
Yeah, what's he like a player to go against? What type of player is he? Well, Veach is dealing with all that. I'm hush on it. As a player, Veach is dealing with what kind of player he is? Is he at practice? Is he in town? I know nothing. Okay, Andy. All right. I don't believe him. I feel like he knows more than that. Which, by the way, I just love the fact that we get this drop. That's Andy Reid saying, I know nothing from now on. It's going to be great. It's awesome. We'll hear from Patrick Mahomes. We'll see if Patrick Mahomes will say the same thing as Andy Reid. That don't know what you're talking about. DeAndre Hopkins, never heard of him. Who? Nuke? Don't know. Not sure. Here's Patrick Mahomes.
You guys have acquired players over the years. How'd you get them ready? What's the process of if someone new were to come in, getting them ready for a game in a couple of days?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is just getting with the coaches. I think our coaches do a great job of getting guys up to speed, and you've seen that throughout this year already. Bringing in guys, getting them up to speed fast, and then letting them go out there and make impact and do what they're great at. And so that's stuff that I think the coaches really do well. And then me as a quarterback, I just try to be on the same page with the guys that are in there whenever I'm taking a snap.
Patrick, hypothetically, you had a receiver that was good at contested catches. Like, what's your comfort level in throwing like that, those sorts of throws on the field?
Yeah, I think in my time, we've had receivers that can make some of those contested catches, and once you build that relationship and build that trust, you put them up there and let guys go out there and make plays. I think that's what's special about Coach Reid's offense is that it adapts to whoever's in there. He has different ways he can utilize your strengths, and then it's my job to go out there and put guys in chances, give them chances to go out there and make plays.
What's your biggest takeaway, Patrick, going through the experience before the past 2 years of bringing in a receiver mid-season? What are perhaps a good takeaway that you learned from it and something that you can use from that experience for this new one?
I think the biggest thing for me is whenever a new guy gets into the building is just getting on that same page as quickly as possible. Even with guys like Kareem in the running back position, just being able to talk with him throughout the protection calls, talk with him kind of throughout the plays, making sure he knows what his job is to do, and then letting him go out and execute it. And I've dealt with that throughout my entire career, bringing new guys in. That's part of the NFL. And like I said, I think the coaches do a great job of making sure guys are prepared and so they can go out there and have success.
Patrick, what do you remember most about that last Raiders game last year, and what sort of it did for you guys, the mentality after that?
I think more than anything, more than even the play on the field, I think it was just a wake-up call for us to know that we're not going to be able to just come to the game and win. We kind of battled through the year, and it was like everybody was we were just trying to build, especially I feel like myself, we were just building for the playoffs. We weren't even worried about the regular season, and I think you've seen that mentality since then as the guys are really taking every single practice and getting the best out of it so that every single week we can play our best football. And if we don't play our best football, we try to get better that next week. And I think that's translated into this season. And so we're continuing to get better as the season goes on, and that's how you have to play in the NFL. And it's still early, but I feel like we've had a great start to it.
Does it seem to be that it would be just as much that way? You're just as conscious of that way as ever now that you're actually playing the Raiders again, like that mentality is what would be front of your mind?
Yeah, I mean, we know we're going to get their best shot. I mean, that's kind of how it's been every single week. But obviously, when you play a divisional opponent, like I've said in the past, it's a real rivalry between our two teams and our two organizations. You're going to get their best shot, and we're gonna go out there and match that and let the best team win.
Is there any more to this? Because I know they all count the same divisional games, whatever, but the talk afterwards that they have the secret how to stop you, the little Kermit the Frog thing, all that stuff. Does that resonate with you at all this week?
I mean, I don't know if you would say resonates with me. I think just knowing that the competitive spirit that they have on that side is going to match the competitive spirit that we have. I think it's going to be a fun football game that we're going to get the best out of each and every player on that football field. And like I said, the best team will win.
Patrick, with a guy like Max Crosby, what do you have to be mindful of when you're back there?
Yeah, I mean, you have to know where he's at on every single snap because he plays extremely hard every single snap, and he's extremely talented. And to have a guy that be that talented and to have that high of a motor, that's special. It takes a lot because you don't always feel great, and you might not be getting. He gets chipped or he gets whatever it is. He doesn't let that bother him. He doesn't let that affect him. He just keeps playing extremely hard every single snap, and so a great challenge for us to go up against him in that defense. And so I think the guys are ready for it.
When you guys have jawed back and forth a little bit, you and Max, how would you describe the respect level between you guys, when it is off the field?
Yeah, it's a high level of respect. I mean, I respect guys that are going to leave it out there every single snap and do whatever they can to let their team have a chance to win. And that's the type of guys I want in this building. And that's what you see with guys on our team is that guys are going to lay it on the line every single snap to win the football game. And that's what it takes to be great in this league. Because, I mean, everybody's good. I mean, everybody's good in this league. It's about who's going to do the extra thing, the extra step, the extra pass rusher, the extra throw, whatever it is to make sure that their team has a better chance to win. And he's one of those guys. And we're on the field. We're going to compete. That's the type of guys that we are, but we have a ton of respect mutually between each other off of it.
Let's go across the room, Adam. Go ahead, bye.
Just not to linger on this too much, Patrick, but that shot you took to the throat the other day, did you hear anything from Collins, or do you have any reason to know by now whether it was inadvertent or you felt bad about it?
I honestly don't think it's that big of a deal. I mean, it's not like anyone got hurt or anything like that. I mean, I threw an interception. I was more upset about the interception than actually getting hit. So whenever you throw an interception, you set yourself up to get hit by somebody, and so that's on me.
Dennis?
As a quarterback who spends so much time with receivers during their offseason, I mean, bring guys down there and work with them, how big of a difference is it between having that whole offseason to work with a guy and that short time? I mean, clearly it's a difference, but how big of a difference is it for timing and stuff?
Yeah, I mean, it probably affects some things, I think, at least initially, but at the same time, I mean, in this league, you have to be able to adapt fastly, and I think that's something that we've been great at is putting guys in position to succeed, getting the reps when we can throughout the week, and then at the end of the day, you got to go out there and play football, and obviously you want as much time as possible, but at the same time, you have to be able to adapt and on the fly and make stuff happen whenever you're out there.
Todd?
Your long run down the sideline last week, people have kind of gone back and looked at it. They think it was like somewhat controversial. It looked like you were going to go out of bounds. What's that line like to make sure that they don't think you're going out of bounds and following whatever rules are, as far as like the unwritten rules of football?
I didn't believe on that play right there I was really showing like I was going to go out of bounds. I don't want to ever put a defender in a bad spot. I mean, I know that we're all competing, so I'm going to – when I go out of bounds, I'm going to go out of bounds. I'm not going to try to fake a guy out by using like a loophole in the rules. At the time, I was going to cut back and get the first down. And then once I cut back, I was going to do one of those dives for the first down, but I cut back and realized I had a lane to run. So I went down the sideline, and then, I mean, I literally ran out of bounds on that exact play. So when I go out of bounds, I'm going to go out of bounds. And whenever I'm trying to get a first down, I'll get a first down. But I'm not trying to use a loophole or anything in the rules to try to cheat in any way.
Go ahead.
Patrick, last Friday night, you guys got to be on hand for a pretty good high school football game.
Mm-hmm.
You got to watch Coach Nagy's son lead a game-winning drive. How important is it for professionals such as yourselves to have a presence like that in the community?
Yeah, I mean, one in the community, I think the Chiefs organization in general has had a great history of having a great presence in the community. It's something that Clark Hunt talks about in the first meeting we have every single year is giving back to the community because they give so much to us and being at Arrowhead every single week and showing support to our foundations. And so just being out there, being at a game, being at a sport I love, letting my kids run around, and then seeing Coach Nagy's son and Coach Merritt's son go at it. I mean, those kids I've seen grow up. So it's cool to see them live out their dream. Both of them will move on and go to Division I colleges. And so it was cool to see their last matchup that they'll get to go up against each other, and it was a great football game.
We'll do our last four. Go ahead, Adam.
Patrick, in what ways have you seen Kareem make a difference in the running game since he's been here?
Yeah, I think he's just done a great job of getting what's there and then making plays whenever his number's called. He seems like every single time he's falling forward, getting 5 yards, 6 yards, whatever it is, and that makes my job easier at the quarterback position and the offense just in general when you're in those advantageous situations and down and distances. And so Kareem has done a great job. He's done a great job not only running the ball, catching the ball. He's done a great job in pass protection. And I think as we start getting more and more guys back and healthier, he might not have to have 30 carries or whatever it is, but whenever he gets his opportunity, he's going to go out there and make it count.
Harold?
Along the lines of the high school question, on behalf of all the Texas affiliates, you've been inducted to
Texas High School Hall of Fame, just your comments on just your memories of playing at the White House and what an honor it is to be with such a great illustrious history of high school football.
Yeah, I mean, I brag about it all the time. I think Texas high school football is the best in the world, just because the way that you have pride in the area that you're from and how you've grown up. And I played the high school football with the same kids I played Little League baseball with, and that's just how it is in Texas. You grow up with that dream, and it's like the movie Friday Night Lights, and you grow up with that dream of winning a state championship. I wasn't able to do that then, but we had a lot of fun times, and I still look back and watch. Even last week, I looked at the record of my high school football team. I just have so much pride in the area that I grew up in, and it's a tremendous honor to be in the Texas High School Football Hall of Fame just because of all the great players and great people that are in it.
Nate?
Patrick, I know that there's been obviously a perception that Travis is not great at blocking, but from your example of watching him and seeing what he's done this season, what do you think people don't realize about how effective he can be at blocking?
Yeah, I think he's a winner, man. I think that's more than anything. He doesn't care how we win. He doesn't care if he's getting catches. He doesn't care what it is. He's going to make an impact on the game, and that's what he's done this year. He's had games where he's caught the ball and made plays in the receiving game. He's had games where he's made critical blocks to get other guys open. And you need those type of guys on your team. And it's the little things that help you win those games at the end of the day. And he takes it upon himself to do the little things right so that he can go out there and we can have success as a team. And one of the best leaders I've been around just because he'll do it all, and he doesn't have to. And so it shows everybody else that you better pick your game up because the Hall of Famer is out there blocking his tail off harder than anybody.
Last one, Matt. Kind of a similar question, but resiliency has been a trademark of the culture around here for a long time. You're a big part of that. But guys come and go. Not everyone has that attitude. Everyone here seems to have it. Where's that championship mentality come from, do you think?
Yeah, it's a culture that I was even brought into. Coach Reed built a great culture with guys, a lot of leaders, Derek Johnson, Justin Houston, Alex Smith, these guys that kind of turned this organization into a time where it wasn't winning as much to where it is now. And I was able to join in that, and I kind of followed suit, and I just try to make my own impact with the guys that I have around me. And every single time we get a young guy in, we go to work, we have the extreme hard training camp, whatever it is, and then we come into the season ready to go out there and compete. And so it becomes a family-like atmosphere, and whenever you have a bunch of brothers on the football field, there's nothing you won't do to give everything you have for the guys standing beside you, and that's where you come across wins in this league.
Thanks, Patrick.
Thank you.
Appreciate y'all.
All right, there's Patrick Mahomes, and boy, he covered a lot of ground there, just as he did on his run down the sideline. But he covered a lot of ground. Biggest thing with DeAndre Hopkins, not specifically DeAndre Hopkins, but getting guys up to speed, doing what they're great at, knowing what they're great at, and getting them acclimated to the offense. Contested catches, he said, in my time we've had some guys. When you build relationships and you can, trust the guy, you put it up there. It's my job to get him that. Mention the Raiders, and then, of course, that run down the sideline, the controversy of if he faked going out of bounds or not. And as he said, if I'm going to run out of bounds, I'm going to run out of bounds. I saw the first down marker. I was going to cut back and dive for the first down marker. It's weird because somebody else on Twitter kept saying that he glanced at the first down marker, and we've seen Mahomes cut back and dive for the first down marker before, but blah, 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 blah. And then he said, I saw the lane that was open, so I went down the sideline, and then I went out of bounds when the guy was there. That's when I went out of bounds. So the controversy around it is he said, I'm not going to try to put a defender in a bad spot and try to use some loophole in my advantage.
Yeah.
It's weird. He said that. I don't know.
Good job, Lebo, asking the question.
Yeah. Well done, Lebo.
You know why, Jason? Lebo's going to get to the bottom of this.
Lebo get to the bottom of it. He did it. He got to the bottom of it. We'll hear from McCole Hardman, and we will hear from Jaden Hicks. Yeah, thank you. There you go. Absolutely. Lebo will get to the bottom of it. So there you go. On a scale of 1 to no chance in hell, do you think people around the league will take him at his word? The parameters are 1 to no chance in hell.
No chance in hell.
Okay.
Well, if you're a Ravens, 49ers.
Yeah. Here's McCole Hardman.
Bring out the best.
I don't know, man. I guess it's just a good stadium to play in, right? But no, I think it was just a good game plan. And, coaches got the way of, giving me the ball in certain situations. And I guess in those situations, it just happened to work, so.
Was it just a matter of opportunity for you feel like, or do you feel like there's a matchup there that the Chiefs feel like they can take advantage of?
Opportunity, honestly. I think, the play they called was, like I said, in the right situation. So basically most on opportunity and just took advantage of it.
What traits do you think make you so effective at those end-around plays that sort of turn into almost pseudo returns where you're able to get chunk yardage?
Just vision, I guess, and just doing it for a period of time now. So kind of got a good feel of it, and kind of what I'm looking for when I'm turning the corner and things like that. So just a lot of time doing it, and got a good feel for it, got the vision for it. So.
Can you tell us a little bit about that with Xavier and how he had to wear the shirt?
Well, a new team coming to the SEC, man, and they got a lot of hype on them, and I don't want to say that team name, but they kind of ran into the big dog of the SEC, and we had to see who was gonna bark a little louder. So kind of just lost that bet right there, that game, and so once you lose a game like that, come with a little consequences, nothing too bad.
What do you remember? I know you didn't play in the game last year against the Raiders, but what do you remember about the atmosphere around the team that week and how you guys felt after that game on Christmas? And it's the last time y'all lost a game.
I don't know. Right? The energy is always high regardless of, either team, and, it's a game that you want to win for sure. A game that you get prepared for, a game that you get up for. So, but yeah, it's just, I guess it's another week, man. But like I said, it's Raider week, so it's definitely a little bit more energy added to that week.
There's been a couple things in the offseason. They were talking about they had the answer to Patrick Mahomes on the podcast, and you saw the video of the Kermit the Frog thing at their training camp. Do you guys care about that stuff that happens off there?
Kermit the Frog.
You see that video where they were in Patrick's voice and Kermit the Frog got all the training?
Oh man, I think I heard something about that, but I don't know. I guess people have their way of going about things. We got our way of going about things. So if that's their way of going about it, that's their way of going about it. But at the end of the day, we still got to go on the field on Sunday and play. So we just get prepared for that and be ready for the challenge.
Talk about the decision, the split-second decision you have to make whether to fair catch a punt or decide to return it. What goes into that?
Well, as a punt return, you want to know what's in front of you. You want to look. So once the ball is punted, you want to know what the gunners are doing. Any punt returner want to look and see what the gunners are doing. If they're free, if they get blocked. And then once you locate the ball and figure out exactly where it's going to kind of land, you want to peek again to see what's in front of you and if you got enough room to make something happen. So once you figure out you got enough room, then you go. If it's one of those situations where it's a lot of hang time, you feel them guys around you, fair catch it.
So are you peek? How many times do you look up and down during a punt?
It just depends on the hang time. Some hang times are anything probably like 4.6 and above, 4.7 and above. I probably peek about twice. Anything 4 or 5 and under, I peek once. It just depends on the type of kick and the hang time as well. End over end usually fall a little bit faster than a regular punt. So but anything high hang time 2 to 3 times. Low hang time, maybe once, maybe get a second peek in there. It just depends on if you locate the ball fast enough.
Okay, we're gonna go last two, and then
As a veteran on this team, you see roster changes, people coming in and out. What are the things that you as a player can do, and any players, to kind of help new people come in and get acclimated to a system?
I guess it's just like any system, man. I think you have veterans in the room, you have guys that been here, so. I think it's just up to those guys that's been here to, kind of like show the way and what's going on and how we do certain things and how we work. So, but for they just come here like any other system, go to work, man, get better each and every day.
Nicole, about this time last year, you kind of went through the trades and everything and coming back here and everything. What's it kind of like off the field, whirlwind-wise, to try to get settled back in and acclimated?
For me, man, honestly, I'm speaking on my situation. I came back in. I was ready to run it. I was good. I was in the ground running. I knew what was going on. I knew the system. But anybody else, I don't really know what they go through. I mean, I guess it's kind of similar. You get on the flight, you get over here, you get acclimated, you get your jersey number. I don't know. There's a lot of stuff that go into it. And but as far as what I did was, I just got to hit the ground running, man, and just ready to contribute in the way I could.
thanks, Nicole.
Appreciate it. Thank y'all.
All right, there's McCole Hardman. Interesting stuff there talking about the punt returns and, how high the hang time is and sort of knowing the seconds of, 5 seconds or 4 seconds if I take one peek or two peeks. And also those end arounds, the vision, doing it for so long, so he's got a good feel for it, know what he's looking for. And Kermit the Frog Doll, he said, Kermit Doll. I don't know. I at first I thought he was joking around, but then he's like, I may have heard something about it, but people have their way of going about it. We have ours. I believe that was genuine. I don't think he was acting there. I think there's it's interesting because there's so much of what we talk about outside and not knowing like what goes on in the building. I think it's pretty obvious that that's not really something they're talking about or paying much attention to there at One Arrowhead Drive getting ready for the Raiders this weekend as much as, how they played against them last year.
Yeah, that's more of a media-driven thing, it sounds like. Maybe Mahomes may have made a note about it, but it doesn't sound like there's an actual puppet going around that they're ripping
Right.
on, making fun of. Or
Yeah, I thought there would be that.
I thought
maybe
did too.
pictures of Kermit the Frog everywhere in the in the facility or in his locker or something like that, But,
But
I guess
what
he
is
probably
it?
doesn't need it.
The lion doesn't lose sleep over the opinions of sheep or whatever it is. I guess that means the Raiders are the sheep. They don't care. The Chiefs know that they're going for Super Bowls. They don't care about beating the Raiders in October.
Yeah, and they'll remember. Look, whether it's the Kermit the Frog doll or Antonio Pierce saying that we've got the recipe to beat them, it's the Mahomes rules. The Pistons had the Jordan rules. We got the Mahomes rules. That is something that I would be concerned about. Is because I know there's a competitive spirit that goes out there, but the Raiders want to be a physical team. And if you've got Antonio Pierce saying, we're training them to hate the Chiefs, hate the color red. And, the Pistons were physical. Every time they were around him, they were hitting them and pushing Jordan and making him uncomfortable. And that's what we're going to do with Mahomes. Like, are there cheap shots coming his way this weekend for a team that ain't going anywhere, but this is their time to – I don't know. If you're a player out on the field, I don't know that you'd want to do that and lose a game check. But in the heat of the moment, maybe, things like that happen. I'm not sure. That's one thing that I would be concerned about is some of that talk relating to the field in ways that aren't necessarily from whistle to whistle.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. I think a lot of those guys, though, especially on the Raiders, they're fighting to stay in the NFL, which, again, maybe that means they're going a little extra hard, but you're right. They can't afford to lose those game checks. Yeah. You can't afford to get a late hit and lose that game check. That's their money. That might be their 1 year in the NFL coming in. You can't do that.
Yeah. Is there another play like Max Crosby is a guy that plays for the Raiders that I like, and I don't know that there's another Raider in my lifetime that I'm like, man, I really like that guy. I like how he plays. I'll root for him to do well. And it just doesn't happen with many players outside of obviously the Chiefs, but certainly the Raiders. And that's how I feel with Max Crosby for some reason. I just love the fact that, it's true. There's not a down that he takes off. Every down he's going full speed, and he plays every single down too. Like, there's something about Max Crosby, man. I just like watching him play, and it's hard to do that and realize that he's a Raider, but that isn't something that's bothered me from watching Max Crosby.
Yeah, I respect the hell out of him.
Yeah. And as we say that, here's Jaden Hicks at the podium.
Event today, right? You had the first thing, the fake punt thing. Take us through like that whole process and what the call was and how you navigate through that.
Yeah, so throughout the week, we've been planning if it was a 4th and 1, then we were going to run that fake. And so the 4th and 1 came, and we decided to run it. But they clogged up the middle pretty much, and so, yeah, that didn't work out too good.
But it's like when you get out there, you see that read, I mean, what did that feel like when you knew it was coming that way?
Yeah, as soon as he said it, like, we're running deep, that play, and I'm like, okay, so we had to get it, and yeah, just seeing everything was closed up in the middle. That's where the play was designed, and yeah.
So then the interception, take us through that play, how much fun that was to get your first pick.
Yeah, so that call, we were supposed to double that outside guy, and he took a little inside stem, which means I would have the inside, and then he went back out. I turned my eyes back to the quarterback, and yeah, just seen him throw the ball and made the play.
As a Raider week around here is a pretty big deal. What have you been told about this week, and how do you feel heading into this week, Raider week?
Yeah, we know that obviously they're a divisional rival and for a long time. So we just talked a lot about how, in the past they won on Christmas Day. And so we still got that gut feeling in our system right now. So we're just going to go out there and, we got to, make plays and just come out with the win.
When the schedule came out, did you circle this going back to your hometown?
Oh, yeah. Family's been planning that a lot too. But yeah, just coming back, being in my hometown, definitely looking forward to it.
How many people you gonna have there? Any idea?
Oh man, over 15 for sure. So yeah, it'll be a pretty big crowd.
So the Raiders haven't been there forever. Did you grow up a Raiders fan when you were a kid, or how did that?
Yeah, no, I actually didn't grow up being a Raiders fan, but obviously them coming to the hometown, while they were there, we supported them. But yeah, it's pretty cool.
Did you ever go to a game as a fan at Allegiant, or were you already in school?
Yeah, so I was in school. I actually didn't get to catch a game. So yeah, this would be my first time, I guess, in Allegiant. Yeah.
Jaden, from the draft until now, where do you feel like you've really grown the most as a player?
I would just say being detailed in my work and, just understanding a lot of this playbook. That's where I feel like I've grown this past year, especially with how, different this playbook is from other leagues and just other systems. So I would just say, just being more detailed and focused in.
And with Coach Merritt, has there been a saying or motto that he said that's really kind of stuck in your head?
Oh man, there's a lot that he says that kind of sticks out. But I would say one of his sayings is use our weapons, and it's our eyes, hands, and feet. So just using those, that just kind of keys into what we should be detailing, what our technique should be, stuff like that. So each day, we're using our weapons.
I want to go back to high school for a second. You went to a school that's produced a lot of NFL players now, and I'm wondering how much pride you take in Bishop Gorman having that kind of success.
Yeah, I mean, they set me up to be in this position right now. And, my brother also went there, and just watching him go through his process, and a lot of guys coming out of that, high school. So I'm a proud alum of them. And, it's just, I met so many great people, and some of my lifelong friends are still from high school. So, I mean, I couldn't be more thankful for it. And, I was just blessed to be able to be there.
You didn't have a senior season, did you?
No, I didn't, actually, yeah.
COVID, right?
Yep, COVID.
So when you grew up in Vegas, did you pick any team you want to like? Who did you? Were you a fan of the NFL team, or how did it go?
Yeah, so my grandparents on my dad's side, they grew up in Texas, and so that was the era that they were good, right? And so my dad, he grew up a Cowboys fan, so that just kind of stuck on to us. And so growing up, I was a Cowboys fan.
So when you're the rookie room, Chris got a pick.
Yeah, oh yeah.
How fun was that to see him? He hadn't gotten to play quite as much. To get out there basically his second snap, right?
No, yeah.
Get a pick. What's it been like to go back and watch that tape, and how excited were you guys for him as well?
Oh man, I guess just the whole room was excited for us. The young guys making plays out there, especially in a big game like that. But yeah, it's just awesome seeing our hard work, actually paying off, and us making plays like that. It's really awesome.
Nick, last one.
Jaden, with the first interception, what do you plan to do with that football? Is there anybody you want to give it to or anything?
Yeah, so I actually am keeping this for myself. That's just a good, good first start. But I actually gave my jersey to my sister. So her dad was in the hospital just this past week. And so, I gave her my jersey to give to him. And he actually sent my mom a photo of he was watching the game in the hospital. So, I felt like it was right to give it to him.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Jaden.
Thank you, guys.
All right, there you go. There's Jaden Hicks. That wraps up the press conferences out at the facilities for the Kansas City Chiefs. Do want to remind you, Andy Reid's press conference is brought to you by Greengrass Cattle Company, the only place to get you ready for every tailgate this football season. Order online at greengrasscattleco.com. That's greengrasscattleco.com. We will take a timeout, come back, continue rolling. We'll talk with Braden Gall on the other side, talk some college football with him, getting ready for the weekend ahead of us. KU K-State there in the Sunflower Showdown. Mizzou heading to Alabama this weekend as well. We'll talk with Braden Gall, and he's stationed there in Nashville, covers the Titans. Maybe get his thoughts on DeAndre Hopkins as well. More Zone coming up next. at the Big 12 Media Days today at T-Mobile. Hearing from the Kansas City Chiefs, Andy Reid, Patrick Mahomes, McCole Hardman, Jaden Hicks, and also we talked with Cynthia Freeland, NFL Network analytics expert, talked with Jared Stillman, 102.5 The Game down in Nashville. Stillman and company about DeAndre Hopkins. And, of course, now we get to talk with our college football insider, owner of 440 Sports Podcast Network, Athlon, and ESPN Radio. We'll catch up here in a second with Braden Gall and get his thoughts on some college football. But hanging out at Big 12 Media Days today, we talked with Jerome Tang earlier today. That was cool. He stopped by, and we discussed the DeAndre Hopkins trade with Jerome Tang, and he gave his thoughts.
Jerome wants DeAndre Hopkins, it sounds like. Sounds
He did,
like a little combo.
Yeah, he said he liked what he might be able to bring to the table for his team. I would say the lack of athleticism for a guy being like 6'1" or 6'2", I think would be an issue. It's so funny, like you see DeAndre Hopkins on the football field, and when like he's going up against jump balls against cornerbacks, and then on the basketball court he'd be like DeJuan Harris or something.
DeJuan Harris is bigger,
taller at least.
Yeah, it's just crazy. Like that is the difference between football and basketball. Like Hopkins is like that's a big body wide receiver. He's going up and getting it, and then you're like, oh, that's the smallest guy on the basketball court. Wow.
Yes,
wow.
It's crazy. I was we were at the Blasters event a couple of Sundays ago that you skipped, Sterling, and we were there.
Whoa! Come on, there's that bus. Thank you. That felt good. Tire marks and all.
I kid. And the KU basketball team was there, and I was showing my son. I'm like, see, that's DeJuan Harris, and he's my size, and I go. That's the smallest guy on the court. So just as you know, as you're getting older, handling the ball, athleticism, shooting, that'll be your game because that's the smallest guy out there, buddy. All right, let's talk with Braden Gall, owner of the 440 Sports Podcast Network, ESPN Radio, Athlon Sports, here in the zone. Braden, welcome in. How are you, sir?
I'm doing well, man. How are you?
I am doing just fine. We'll obviously talk some college football with you, but I would love to get your thoughts as someone who covers the Tennessee Titans. What your thoughts are on DeAndre Hopkins, very briefly, and what the Chiefs may be getting in this trade for Hopkins.
Well, here's how, there's a lot of different ways. First of all, I find him to be a fascinating individual from a personality standpoint, so we can get into a lot of interesting things about like who he is and the Titans and the Chiefs. We can do all this stuff. Here's the most basic way I can describe this. As a fantasy owner with DeAndre Hopkins on 2 of my 3 teams, I am ecstatic. That's it.
You should.
I feel like that's all
the way
you need to
know. Okay, so you're saying that he will translate into being a good, productive fantasy receiver when he's on a good, productive offense with a good, productive quarterback, that he can be back to being close to DeAndre Hopkins than playing with Will Levis, whatever version of this he's been.
Well, that's yes, short answer, But also, this guy was very productive last year with Will Levis on a coaching staff that got fired, on an offensive line that was atrocious. He was his go-to guy last year, and he had, I think he hit all of his escalators after they put a contract on his, he signed late, right, with the Titans, and a lot of that was built into his performance base. And he had, I think, 70-plus catches, over 1,000 yards, hit every mark, played enough games, and escalated his contract, to the max. So he was very good last year in this market. What I find interesting, just in general, and this is not necessarily, this doesn't mean he fits or doesn't fit. I think schematically – it's a fantastic combination. Travis Kelce, DeAndre Hopkins, Xavier Worthy with, I guess, a rejuvenated Kareem Hunt. I find the balance of skill sets between Worthy, Kelce, and Hopkins to be a very nice blend. And so you have 2 very dependable targets that probably aren't doing a lot of yak. They're probably not doing a lot of deep shots. But, Hopkins is a playmaker at the sticks. He's a playmaker down the field if you need him to be. But it's just extremely dependable. The ball's going to go to him. He's never going to be open, but he's going to catch the ball almost every time as long as the ball's put in the right place, which, of course, I trust Mahomes to do. So I think the blend of offensive skill is a great fit, especially you look around the league and you look at the AFC teams that are getting better, in particular with receivers. You can't just sit by with all the injuries. I think it's a great move. I think it's a good move for the Titans. Getting rid of Ernest Jones, I think, was a little bit of a surprise for them. He's a really good player that I think they would have re-signed, but basically, they're going to get a player and 2/4 for these 2 deals. They may not be done yet. I've heard Jeffrey Simmons is available potentially for the right price. There's another bunch of other players. I mean, basically, they're going to sell anybody that offers them a good deal. And they want I've talked to the front office and the analytics department about this. They want a huge draft class to sort of kickstart this whole thing. And where they are is clearly not in the playoffs, so it's the right time to do it. And I think the Chiefs are a great partner for Hopkins. Hopkins is such a fascinating dude. Like, just in general, I think you guys are going to really like getting to know him because I think he's extremely particular. He's very specific with how he does everything. Like, he really loved Nashville. He's big into the fashion scene and the food scene and the local music scene. Like, he's just very culturally knowledgeable. And again, everything he does is on purpose. That's what really struck me sort of covering him last year and then this year. Like, everything he does, whether it's, how he warms up, how he stretches, he does things differently than everybody else. So, like, the whole team will be stretching and he'll be doing something different. And it's okay because he's just so particular about everything. So he's not a vocal guy. He's not going to be yelling and screaming. He's not a roo-rah-rah guy. That team doesn't need that. But a consummate professional that does everything like I love OCD people that are very predictable in how they do things. And he's just very particular, very smart, kind of quiet and keeps to himself, but the mind is constantly racing. And so I think it's a really interesting fit for just how smart that organization is.
Yeah, and I think it'd be a nice change for Patrick Mahomes that there'll be somebody on the field that he could throw the ball to, and you've got a pretty decent idea that the guy's going to catch it if he's open and it's near him. And that was an issue last year, and it was an issue at times in the game over the weekend against the 49ers with Juju out of the game and Rashee Rice out for the season and Hollywood Brown out until the playoffs and the injuries they've suffered. And just having a guy that you throw the ball to and he's going to catch it is pretty vital. It's part of – it's one of the words in the name is receiver. And oftentimes it's overlooked. It's weird.
What I find really interesting about all the names that you just rattled off, and we could put Tyreek Hill in there as well, right? Like, I would say volatility sort of ties all of them together. Like, Rice is very talented, going to be a good player in this league, but certainly off the field unpredictable, right? Just there's some volatility there where you just don't know exactly what you're going to get. I think certainly Tyreek Hill was constantly that, still is. And Kelsey, for all of his consistency, certainly has some noise around him, obviously. But there's just with Hopkins, there's just no noise. I don't know what the right word, maybe calm is the right word, but having a stabilizing veteran presence that you know where he's going to be at all times because he's a professional sounds like a really good change of pace for all the different types. I mean, even Hollywood is somebody who's very volatile as a player, both injuries and personality-wise. So I just think, and none of that's a bad thing necessarily, it's just that's a lot of volatility for a lot of different players. Xavier Worthy, volatile for a different reason, right? Inexperienced, right? Just not there yet, but very talented. Hopkins is the opposite of all of that stuff. It's just I'm going to be exactly where I'm supposed to be when I tell you I'm going to be there, and I'm going to do my job because again, he's just very stable and dependable and mature, and I think that's frankly what Patrick Mahomes is going to really enjoy having.
Yeah. Braden Gall is our guest, owner of the 440 Sports Podcast Network, Athlon Sports, ESPN Radio. All right, let's talk some college football with you. What did that fourth quarter do for Missouri? Down 17-3. Brady Cook was in the hospital, told the people there, I've got 2.5 games left at Faurot Field. I'm not spending part of it here in the hospital. I'm going to go play. And if Brady Cook doesn't play in that game, they lose that game because their offense was doing absolutely nothing. So what did that do for Mizzou? Did it save the season? Did the season need saving? What do you make of the fourth quarter and where Mizzou sits now with only one loss still on the resume?
I think it's sort of eye of the beholder, but also I think dependent on what they do moving forward. If he's healthy and they beat Alabama, then it means a whole lot more. If he's healthy, if he's not healthy and they lose to Alabama, it means less. If they beat Oklahoma and although Oklahoma looks very beatable right now and sort of finish off as a 10-2 team, even if they lose to Alabama, then you point to that win and you go, this is the win that gave them a chance at the playoff. I think you could also look at it the other way and say Auburn is really, really bad, and you got beat for most of that game. Vanderbilt, much better, beat you for a lot of that game. Boston College, not great, had a chance to win the game. Are they as good as their record? Probably not. Are they as good as their ranking? Maybe. We're going to find out. And I think Missouri is just still a bit of an unknown. I think I had them at 6 or 7 in the preseason with LSU and A&M. LSU and A&M, of course, still undefeated in conference, as we all predicted. But I still just – I had questions about even as good a job as Eli Drinkowitz has done stockpiling the roster at a place that doesn't normally stockpile rosters, I thought it was going to be a tall ask all summer to say be as good as the most historically epic season you've ever had in school history with, as we talked about, NFL players at almost every position on the team gone to the league. And so I think we've seen the step back in talent. You got to have Cook healthy and playing at a high level to beat Alabama on the road, despite Alabama's struggles lately. So I think I think a lot of it depends. Like if they go on and win every other game but lose to Bama and they're 10-2, it's exactly how I feel, which is the win is a great story about a guy who is willing to play through pain and play for his last few games at that field and do the whole it's a great early 90s sports movie script. It's fantastic, and I love it. And if they go 10-2, that game will be pointed to as hey, this was the game that gave them a chance to get into the playoffs. If they lose to Bama, lose to Oklahoma, stumble because Cook isn't healthy, then it's sort of they're not as good as their record, and Auburn had them beat for a large chunk of that game.
Visiting with Braden Gall, yeah, it's we'll see what happens this weekend. That line is at 13.5 now for Mizzou, getting 13.5 points. It's opened up with 2 touchdowns, but you know what? Heavy money coming in on Mizzou. Braden dropped a half point. Heavy money. Go and pound Mizzou plus the points. Yeah.
My $15 bet on Alabama probably not going to move the line too much.
Oh well, there you go.
On that one,
when he gets back up to 14, I'll know why.
No, I got Bama laying the points just because I think they're going to be motivated, and I think if Cook is even just half the player he is, that's a reason for Alabama to win. Yeah. And so again, same thing with Alabama.
I was going to say, what is Alabama?
I think they're okay. I don't think I think Tennessee, hostile environment, really good defense. Iyama is getting much better. He's growing. I think much like you're seeing Garrett Nussmeier at LSU and Avery Johnson at Kansas State, the same group of players we've talked about. They just need time, and I think Nico's developing. That's a really hostile environment, a very boring first-half football game for both teams. And Milroe's not going to be asked to throw the ball probably that much and a half again. I think Tennessee is worthy of giving them a challenge. And so I think that was more about Tennessee and less about Alabama. I think the concerns about Alabama are third-down defense, secondary being young and experienced. I trust Kalen DeBoer to figure it out. I just do with that much talent on offense. So I think they're going to be okay, but we're going to find out the next 2 weeks because they got Missouri and then at LSU, and then it's probably a walk after that. So same thing. If they win this game and then beat LSU, they're 10-2 and all but guaranteed a playoff spot. If they lose to Missouri, lose to LSU, they're 8-4, and people are burning the place to the ground because they're unsure what to do without Nick Saban, when you should expect a drop after Nick Saban retires.
Yeah, I was talking yesterday with one of our guys, and we were discussing Alabama and sort of looking at this game, and I'm like, I don't know what to make of Alabama. There's a part of me that feels like, hey, they're a good SEC team this year that had an amazing 18 minutes against Georgia. And outside of that, they're a good team. I mean, they played well against Wisconsin on the road earlier in the season. Georgia turned it on and boat raced them until, Alabama answered there at the end and got the win. Lost to Vandy. 2-point conversion away from a tie against South Carolina, and also then, botched the onside kick. And then the game this weekend at Tennessee, and Tennessee's no slouch. So it's not like, they lose to Tennessee, what the hell's going on? But it's it just feels like, they're a good team. It's that Georgia game that's that flashing wow, they beat Georgia 41-34, but it feels like a really good 18 minutes of football against a stud, competitor in Georgia. And outside of that, they're a good team. They're a pretty good football team in the SEC.
I think it's an interesting way to put it because that's sort of a large part of the conversation we've had this week on our shows, which is I see a lot of flawed football teams at the top of the rankings. They're all very good, but they have flaws. Whether that, I mean, Miami has tried to lose 3 times this year, and they have arguably the best quarterback, and they're undefeated. So I agree with I think that's a fair assessment of Alabama. I think it's a fair assessment of LSU, of Texas A&M, of Tennessee, of Ole Miss, of Missouri. I think Texas and Georgia are a slight cut above, but I still think Georgia's probably the best team in the country right now. I think Oregon is very good, but go pop in the tape of the Idaho game and Boise State. They got beat up on the line of scrimmage by teams they should be way better than. So are they flawed? Like I just think you can point to almost everybody, and I think it's a really beautiful part of I think it just happened to line up that the playoff expanded in a year where like the roster management issues have sort of come to the forefront, especially at the quarterback position, where we have quarterback parity and balance all over the country. We don't have a super quarterback who's elite. I mean, again, Cam Ward is maybe that, but clearly the rest of Miami is not. And so I just look around you could look, I could say Georgia, Texas, Ohio State, Oregon, if you want to put those four on a tier and sort of say there's a drop after that, I'm fine with that. But then you have to go like 5 through 22, and you got to be like, oh, they're all kind of about the same, And so what's going to happen in a tournament? I can't wait. I think it's going to be awesome.
No doubt. I do wonder if we'll learn anything, in 13 days from now on when those rankings come out. I mean, we'll find out. Last one on the SEC, and then I want to talk about the Sunflower Showdown coming up this weekend with K-State and KU at 7 o'clock on ESPN2. But as we sort of talk about these teams in the SEC, is there going to be a two-loss team, two-loss in conference, not just two losses, but two-loss conference SEC team that'll be playing in the title game? Maybe two. Do you think we'll see at least one team that'll have two losses that'll be playing for an SEC championship? Conference losses.
Well, there's a good chance that the winner of the LSU A&M game, if they go on, because LSU's schedule kind of sets up. So if LSU can go on the road and beat A&M and then beat Alabama at home, you could see a Georgia-LSU matchup with one loss each. Texas could certainly still run the table and get in with one loss. There's a good chance there's a two-loss team in there, but it's probably 50-50, to be honest with you, because you've got right now Tennessee, Georgia are going to play. They're both probably going to have one loss when they play. So as long as Georgia beats Ole Miss on the road, they take care of business against Florida. Again, as long as we don't see the Vandy, Alabama thing or the Arkansas, Tennessee thing happen, which is sort of part of the game at this point, there's a good chance that Texas is going into A&M game with one loss. There's a good chance LSU and Bama are playing with one loss. There's a good chance A&M could go into that Texas game with one loss. Georgia and Tennessee could play with one loss. So you can count a lot of losses in those games, but you could also see teams getting through. So I don't know. I think it's interesting to see what will happen with the committee. I don't think that any team, in frankly any conference, that is, but definitely the SEC or the Big Ten, if you get to the championship game at 10-2 and lose, but you are the number 2 team in the 2 best conferences, I cannot imagine you are left out of the playoff. I just think that would be ridiculous. That because you had to play an extra game against the number 1 or 2 teams in the country, because that's where they'll finish, right? If you lose to Georgia or you lose to Ohio State or Oregon in those championship games, and you have a third loss, that you had to play an extra game versus what will be number 1 and 2 in the country. I mean, if Georgia and Ohio State win the Big Ten and SEC, they will be 1 and 2, full stop. And so how do you punish a team for having to play an extra game against number 1 and losing? I think that's absurd. So I think the committee's going to I think they'll do the right thing on that. What I think is really interesting, and to bring this back to y'all's area, let's say Iowa State is that team, and Iowa State loses. Let's say they're 11-1, they go to the Big 12 championship game, they lose in a rematch in Farmageddon or whatever, or whatever it might be, and they're 11-2, and Bama is 9-3. Or Texas A&M is 9-3. Half the people I've talked to think that Alabama would get in that situation. I think the 2-loss Big 12 team gets in because I think the committee historically has leaned on better record, even if that team is not clearly better. If Alabama's only losses, again, Vanderbilt notwithstanding, are at Tennessee by 1 score, basically an even game, and at LSU, I could make the case that Alabama is clearly a better football team than Iowa State. But because they play a tougher schedule, et cetera, they get left out. That's the debate I think that people are already having because there's so much losing already at the top of the sport right now.
Yeah, and then you'd have that scenario of a team playing an extra game and picking up that loss if it's a rematch of Farmageddon, which would be back-to-back games since they play at the end of the season.
Yeah.
Kansas State and KU, they play 7 o'clock on Saturday night on ESPN2. It's the one home game for K-State in this middle portion of the season, sandwiched between 3 road games and 2 bye weeks. It's the second game they played at home since September 13th. So the fans will be excited to be out there here. This Kansas State team, I was impressed by what I saw from Colorado on that Saturday, and then they went and took care of business at West Virginia. They took care of business against Oklahoma State. Kansas comes off the bye. They looked like a Kansas team that we thought they would be early in the season. They aren't turning the football over, and they put up 42 points. So I do wonder, like, talking about this game, is Kansas closer after the bye week in this one game against Houston to what we thought they would be? Or is Kansas State now in the stretch to where they're showing that they are the more sort of well-rounded, deeper, good football team that is just simply going out and taking care of business since that BYU fiasco?
You're probably not going to like this answer, but I think it's all of those things. Because
I think that's the answer we came up with yesterday. Like, we were like, I don't even know. Like, it's an 11-point line. I'm like, I don't know which side I like. I don't know.
Because Vegas, to your point about the point spread, I think Vegas clearly agrees that Kansas is better than its record indicates, and that the rivalry is more complicated than just two teams with very different records, right? Like, that's Vegas acknowledging, I think, that truth. I also think Houston's not very good. I think they're going to be good eventually. Like, I think Willie Fritz is going to do a great job, but that's not where they are right now. I think Kansas State is one of the best teams in the conference and is getting better almost all the time. And I think, in theory, on paper, should win the game. But I think Vegas is acknowledging sort of all of the truths that are kind of happening right now with both these teams. A little surprised at sort of how many. It's not just this one, but like Michigan State is a great rivalry game. Totally. Big Ten Network. It's not going to be a high-profile game for many people. It's combined 6 losses. Michigan's only a 4-point favorite. That game is completely sort of not irrelevant, but is like left our top of mind. Sunflower Showdown left our top of mind. Miami and Florida State this weekend, completely irrelevant. 3-touchdown favorite Miami, who I imagine will exact some revenge. When these two played in Miami a couple of years ago, I think it was Mario's first year, and Mike Norvell ran the score up. So I imagine. I would lay the 20 points, I think, if I was gambling on Miami. But the point is there's all these rivalries that are, like, clearly Vegas agrees on the Michigan and the Kansas State game, because they're saying, look, this is much closer than we imagine. And I think that has to play a factor. So everything is true. I think all things are true. Yeah. Kansas could be getting better and becoming the team that we thought they were, but also plenty of teams get better when their schedule lightens up. And also Kansas State is clearly surging right now into what could be a very special season, but also it's a rivalry game and you never know, throw the records out, right? So it's kind of everything.
Yeah, I would have liked to see one more game from Kansas to have a better feel of was this just Houston related, or is there something more here? But we don't get that, and I can't go to Sunday and then place my bet for Saturday. It doesn't time doesn't allow me to do that, which is ridiculous. Braden Gall, owner of the 440 Sports Podcast Network, Athlon Sports, ESPN Radio. Braden, you are the man as always. Appreciate it, brother. Enjoy the football, and we will talk next Tuesday, brother.
Yep, always a pleasure.
Absolutely. There's Braden Gall, our college football insider. We will take a timeout. We'll come back. We'll continue rolling, hanging out at T-Mobile. It's Big 12 Media Day, and hoping to catch up in the next hour with Bill Self. Mick Schaefer will be hanging out with us. We'll take a timeout. We'll come back. More Zone next. Braden Gall, Cynthia Freeland, the press conference. Thank you to Patrick Mahomes for speaking to us today. And Andy Reid and McCole Hardman and Jaden Hicks, just really being honest and upfront. Like Andy Reid, really letting everybody know what's going on behind the scenes with DeAndre Hopkins.
I want to give a thank you to Dylan.
Yeah?
Thank you, Dylan.
Oh, thanks, D. What are we thanking him for again, besides just being a hell of a model American?
He's just doing a great job back there. He's
Yes.
keeping us on air. And
Don't give me credit for that, Jason. That's not true.
you're on remote, so he has to look at my face. That
Ooh,
right
yeah.
there deserves a thanks.
It's hazard pay.
Yeah.
That's hazard pay. Is what that
Guys,
is.
I haven't talked yet. Can you thank me?
All right, we're back finally. I mean, I'm just so sick and tired of Dylan saying you can't talk right now. I mean, it's just been this whole show, it feels like, right, Sterling? I mean, he's just been like, hey, shut up. We're going to play these commercials that we're going to play so you can keep your job and stuff like that. It's just so weird what Dylan's doing back there.
What do we think but before this comment, what was the over-under on how many words I spoke during the show? Like 17?
Well, there was an actual over-under, and then there was like a dream over-under.
Don't talk about your dream.
Has it not been very many words, Sterling?
No, because we started off the show, and then we started talking about DeAndre Hopkins, and then Jerome Tang sat down.
Yeah.
And so then Jerome Tang and I talked about DeAndre Hopkins.
Makes sense.
And then after Jerome Tang, we had a guest on from Nashville to talk about DeAndre Hopkins. Then we talked with Cynthia Freeland, and then we had Chiefs press conferences. Then I talked with Braden Gall from college football. And now I'm talking to you. So 7.5 maybe?
Oh, sounds like the perfect show.
7
words away from the perfect show.
I'm the Sky Moore of this show. It's been great.
That's how many snaps. 7
Wait, you have
chipmunks.
100 yards receiving?
I've been here, but I haven't been asked to do anything. Like, anytime he throws it my way, I drop it, and so he just stopped throwing my way.
I was going to say exactly that. I was going to say how many times you got to drop the ball today when I throw it your way, and then you would be the Sky Moore.
If you make fun of yourself first,
that's right.
Then you take away
smart.
Yeah, Mick, I've learned that from
Mom
you.
Spaghetti. You got Mom Spaghetti over there. You're killing it. You look calm, and ready. But who knows if you are or not. Mick, are you Sterling said this was a dumb comment, but I disagree. But are you surprised at all that the Chiefs are, at least the reports, they are going to get DeAndre Hopkins up to speed and have him play on Sunday if they can, as opposed to, hey, you've got this MCL injury that you've been nursing and the Titans have been bringing you along slowly, and you had a lower leg injury that you missed the last 2 drives of the game on Sunday, that, maybe we don't need to push it here against the Raiders.
I am surprised if he plays against the Raiders. That surprises me.
That's the plan.
Even if he's 100% healthy, which, hey, he might be.
Yeah.
Because if he's not practice today, starting on a Thursday, and it's the Raiders, and it's the Raiders. There's that part. It's the Raiders, and not sure why you would need to rush. So if he plays, I'll be surprised because that's kind of not the Chiefs when they've done this before. A week of practice, you get your feet wet, and then let's go week 2.
Sterling pushed back on me, so what do you think, Sterling?
I don't like pushing back on you anymore because I feel like we need to be a team here. We need to really grow, and I feel like we've been.
I like it.
So you think he's going to play? You won't be surprised if he plays?
His point. What Sterling? I'll let you make the point.
Yeah, okay. So
I'm not going to speak for you.
Well,
you know what? I want to keep that under. I had the under on words for the show today.
Tan down his words. All right.
I actually bet on myself for the under, and I'm going to rip the over now. Well, I didn't know that
Pete Rose.
I pulled Pete Rose, Jamison Williams. I decided to have some fun with it. No, my main thought process here was they're going to try and get him involved a la Josh Gordon when he first came to KC. Now, I'm not comparing him to Josh Gordon.
God, I hope he gets more involved than a 1-yard touchdown pass. But 10 other guys in the field could have scored.
No, but my point is they might try and give him that same exact play to let him score, to get him involved early, gets the fans excited, gets the team excited. But I don't think he's going to play a lot. But when I say I think he's going to play 10 to 15 snaps, yeah, I think that makes sense. Will he play in the red zone? Yeah, that to me makes sense. You have, 4 wide receivers currently on the roster? You might as well have him at least out there suited up, just break in case of emergency. I'm not saying he plays 80% of the snaps, but I think you'll see him out there at least running a few routes.
Well, his point also was, and I thought Sterling was going to bring this point up with the pushback, was, didn't we also say it's just the Raiders last year on Christmas Day?
Oh, yeah.
It's true.
And I said, yeah, it's a good point. I do feel differently about this one because that just seemed like there was such frustration at that point in the season, right? Heading into Christmas Day, that it was like, well,
sure,
they'll figure it out against the Raiders, and we didn't really know how bad things were going with that team until the Raiders, where this is now 12 games in a row, and it's like, no, they're going to be figuring out ways to win, and it seems like they're now coming on here the last couple of weeks.
Well, there's that, and I mean, look, you can argue that there's never really an upset in the NFL. But the other side of this argument might be like, okay, this is a great, even though it's only the Raiders, a great game for trial and error. Get him out there and have that first game out there to where you're trying things, and if it doesn't work, if it does result in a pick or whatever, it's the Raiders, and hopefully you can overcome that.
Yeah, that's a good point. I like that idea as well. So, Mick, what do you think of the DeAndre Hopkins deal? The trade, he comes in, it's a fifth-rounder that you hope it's a fourth-rounder.
You hope it's a fourth-rounder, absolutely.
It'll be Super Bowl and playing time. So, God, give him a fourth-rounder right now. That'd be great. So what do you make of the deal and what they may get from DeAndre Hopkins this year?
I mean, it's a great deal for the Chiefs. The 31 other teams complaining right now have a great point. Like, really? You're going to do that? You're going to give the 6-0 team
Here we go.
You're going to do this? Really? Did you benefit that much from a fifth-round pick? Did you? Are Titans, is that the game changer for you? Championship? Really? Is that it? Give me a break. So I get everybody else's frustration because this seems like just a total win for Kansas City. It just sucks that DeAndre Hopkins is about to get hurt.
I mean, Mick, is it a warm, fuzzy blanket because the Chiefs just fleeced the Titans?
Oh, I like that.
Yeah.
Nice. It is. It's like an Afghan or some sort of parka.
Yeah.
There you go, going in there. So no, this it's wild. The receivers that have come through this door since this time last year for Kansas City, and how they are still kind of in need at that position.
Well, it's like this team is 6-0. In the last 4 weeks, they have not had Isaiah Pacheco, and then they haven't at all this year had Hollywood Brown or DeAndre Hopkins. So in the playoffs, in theory, you'd be taking a team that looks like this already and adding Pacheco, DeAndre Hopkins, and Hollywood Brown.
As far as Pacheco goes, they lost their starting running back. I think they found their running game with him being out.
I don't disagree.
I think they found their running style and their running game.
They've been really efficient at it. They are running between the tackles. They're running downhill. It's more power. It's actually a better way to counter what the Raiders did last year, because the Raiders were the team, and Sam McDowell brought this up yesterday. I thought it was an interesting point. He said, the Raiders were the first team that actually lined up and said, you know what, we're not going to let you run the ball up. We're going to dare you to throw it deep on us because we don't think you can or you will, and we're not just going to let you pick up 5 or 6 yards on us by playing too deep. We're going to play physical and bring everybody up to the line of scrimmage, and the Chiefs didn't have an answer to that because they couldn't go deep. And so now, if the Raiders want to bring everybody up and play physical, one, Wilkins is on the IR. But if they want to do that, one, they can go deep because Xavier Worthy at least will show that he can beat you. But this team is built more, and they're playing different to where they will go physical with you, where last year they weren't going to in that Raiders game.
I mean, it's a difference of, I joked for the last couple of years, the Chiefs will run on first down to set up a 2nd and 9, basically. Why are you running on first down? To make it, we feel good at 2nd and 10.
Yeah, 2nd and 10, right where
now it's 2nd and 6 or better, and that's a game changer, really, in the NFL where every yard counts. And so, yeah, and I like, even when they aren't completing them, it's about once a quarter or more the Chiefs are showing that, okay, yeah, we're going to take a shot here.
Yeah.
We're just going to send Xavier Worthy down there and see what happens. And you're going to hold your breath that entire time, aren't you? And then you're going to change some things for the next defensive possession because you know that's a threat. And about once a game, they're hitting on that.
And if you hit on that deep, like if Mahomes hits, it's an if, but if Mahomes hits Xavier Worthy to start the third quarter, the feeling out of that game is much different in terms of wide receiver and effectiveness and explosiveness. And we would say, all right, they'd have 2 different 50-yard touchdowns through 6 weeks to Xavier Worthy, one against the Chargers and then one against the 49ers. So, 1 out of every 3 games they get a 50-yard touchdown to Xavier Worthy. That's quite different. But he missed him. He overthrew him, which is possible to be able to do. But if you're a team, I don't think you're probably risking that very often of saying, well, we think Mahomes is going to overthrow him this time.
Yeah.
No, good luck with that.
And it's like you kind of can't help but look ahead to December. And if Hollywood comes back and you have both those guys in the fold, the new guys as well as Xavier Worthy and Juju Smith-Schuster, it's like, okay, maybe at the end of this season, the position of worry for the last 2+ years can finally be a strength. Cross your fingers. Finally be a strength because they went out and did what everybody said they should do. Go get a couple former Arizona Cardinal playmakers, okay? That's what everybody said in the offseason. What are you doing? They're out there. Get some former Cardinals.
Yeah, I really wanted Greg Dortch, man. I wanted Greg Dortch so bad.
Wait, isn't that the new Thomas, the guy who just showed up on
Michael
Camp
Thomas?
Cam Thomas.
Cam Thomas,
Michael
the
Wilson,
DN.
Sorry.
He was former. Was he Cardinal as well?
Yeah, Cam
That's
Thomas
right.
was.
Just raid Arizona.
Yeah,
Okay.
That's right. And you are raising Arizona to the bar of what the Chiefs are with Hollywood and Nuke now. So both of them in the fold. Hopefully both.
Is that
of
his
them.
nickname?
Yeah.
Call
So
it
you'll
Nuke.
Pop and Nuke.
What do you think Kenyon Drake's up to? Maybe Kenyon Drake, get him.
Love it.
Yeah, sure. Didn't Buddha play for the Cardinals for a while? Buddha
Yes.
Baker, let's bring him in. My son's been pining for Buddha Baker for some reason.
You
for like
guys,
the last 2 months.
I have it.
it's
Patrick Peterson.
Patterson.
Patrick Peterson.
Patrick Peterson, absolutely.
He's got to be out there somewhere. Isn't that like you know what? As we'll take a break here in a second, Dylan. I get it. All right. Mick Schaefer is our guest. I brought this up earlier, Mick, and I'm like, we've been talking about wide receiver trades for the last 3 weeks, and I would say 5% of that conversation has included the name DeAndre Hopkins. There's been so many other things, and I said, I get for me, I know why it was that way for me, because it kind of feels like that song's been played for 2 years. Like we've had that conversation. It's the Odell Beckham Jr., Ty Law, Patrick Peterson, this is going to happen. And you just sort of put it off to the side and say, all right, we've talked about that. What about Deontay Johnson, Amari Cooper, Devontae Adams, Cooper Kupp, other guys that, we've discussed that. It hasn't happened yet. Is it ever going to happen? I have no idea. But I'm tired of talking about that same thing because we've done it before. And then that ends up being the one that they trade for.
We should learn by now where there's smoke, the Chiefs are going to run to that fire. If it's not a guy who's been with the team before, it's a guy they loved in the draft or a guy they've been really close to in free agency or in trades in the past. And that's the next step, right? This is the guy we've talked about, DeAndre Hopkins, forever, and there was smoke there. I mean, there's a reason. There's fire, and here he is. So they exhausted all the guys. Well, not all the guys. There are some receivers out there. Glad they didn't bring one back that had been on the team that we kind of speculated about.
Do you think DeAndre Hopkins better than MVS?
I do.
Yeah, but MVS doesn't cost him a 5th rounder.
It's still great. What would he have cost?
Too much. MVS, whatever it was, whatever.
Even the plane ticket.
Restocking the Coke machine like in Moneyball, basically.
Oh, and I doubt DeAndre's gonna yell at us for how to pronounce his name. So, like MVS.
Yeah. Apparently, Braden Gall who's covered him the last 2 years there in Nashville, said he's one of his favorite people because he's really interesting. He's very particular. He's kind of an OCD about everything in life, about how he goes about his business, about how he practices, how he warms up, how he runs his routes, things like that, real professional.
That's how you're in the league for, a 13th straight year?
Right, yeah. And it's just sort of an interesting guy, and he's like, you'll enjoy covering him. I'm looking forward to hearing from him whenever he gets here because we can't ask Andy Reid about that. He knows nothing.
He knows nothing
about DeAndre Hopkins. What if he actually did, though? What if they showed up and DeAndre Hopkins out there practicing, Veach is like,
who's this guy?
Hey, by the way, I brought in, we traded for DeAndre Hopkins for you, so figure it out.
Who's what number is he gonna wear? Do we know? We don't know yet, do we?
Got to be 0, right? Because Pacheco is 10.
It has to be.
Well, but Pacheco was 10. You can't use 1 because Xavier Worthy.
Brian Cook is 6 as well.
So you just drop off.
Was he 6 before?
I just see all the edits online for some reason. Have him as I think 6 was his college number. That's why.
Okay.
I'm just saying 0, Agent 0, like Gilbert Arenas out there.
You would just be taking the 1 off of his number,
correct,
and it would be 0. That's easy to do.
What if he was 0-1? Would that count as a different number than 1? You just flip them around.
0.
Yeah.
Because then you can have 0 and then 0. It's 2 different zeros.
I mean, the colleges get away with having guys with the same number.
Yes.
Right? NFL can do it.
Yeah. I see every once in a while a guy on kickoff coverage for Mizzou. It's number 3. I'm like, why are they that's just different.
In fairness, that's different spots though, and they're not on the field at the same time. You're not having both 3s. What if you had Pacheco at 10 and DeAndre Hopkins at 10? Who has 10? Ooh,
there you go. You got him confused. That is great. Maybe it's 0. We'll find out what his number ends up being. We'll take a timeout. We'll come back, continue rolling. We are hanging out here at the Big 12 Media Days and hoping to catch up with Bill Self here very soon. And we'll take a timeout. We'll come back, continue rolling more zone right after this, hanging out with Mick Schaefer. All right, we continue right here on Sports Radio 810 WHB. Jason Anderson with you. Mick Schaefer. We're hanging out here at Big 12 Media Days at T-Mobile. Sterling Holmes, Dylan Michaels back at the station. We had up until 2 o'clock, and then it is the program with Soren Petro will come your way at 2 o'clock. Tonight at 6 o'clock, little Hawk Talk with Lance Leipold getting ready for this Sunflower Showdown Saturday night, 7 o'clock on ESPN2. And we will find out, a lot about these teams, obviously, and I would really, it doesn't work this way, but I'd really like to see one more game with Kansas after the bye to get a better feel of what I think Kansas is, because Houston isn't very good. And did Kansas, fix some things in the bye week and look more like we thought they would look this season? Was that a one-off game? Because it certainly seems like Kansas State is rolling into form of a team that is just really solid, really good right now.
I mean, I think KU could be, what would it be, 6-1 right now? I mean, they had opportunities down the stretch. They have been a team that hasn't played great in all those games, but had multiple chances to win all those games, minus the what's the West Virginia they blew. It was the one they lost TCU at Arrowhead. They lost by a couple scores, right?
UNLV, they lost at Sporting.
Right, but I mean that was right there. Illinois at the end they had chances. West Virginia just gave away. Yeah. I'm surprised the line is this close. Is this big?
Yeah.
Right. I would have thought it'd been a lot closer. I thought it was one of those that were like, okay, Vegas is looking beyond the records, and I'm sure they are. I'm sure they're right. Whatever, I'm wrong. But I would not be surprised if this is a single-digit one-score game.
Yeah.
Like last year.
I don't know.
I believe in K-State. I think K-State could win the Big 12.
If KU doesn't turn the ball over, I think it's going to be a close game. If KU turns the ball over a couple times, then K-State can run away with this thing because Avery Johnson's playing much better football.
He is, but also he was one-dimensional against West Virginia. They did not run him. You have to wonder about that oblique and what's
his
his
status. They had the
status.
one pass down the field early in the game, right? That was
he passed
that
it.
was West Virginia. Yeah, the pass down the field that was the long touchdown. That was early on too. But
No, I'm saying he threw the ball all over the place. Okay. Avery did. He just didn't run it against West Virginia.
Right. Okay.
So we'll see how his health for this game because I mean he's developing as a passer, but that number one skill is being able to just take off.
Dual threat ability. Hey, the Raiders are coming up this weekend.
They are.
That's exactly right. Yes, and the Chiefs were asked about them a lot.
That's the last game the Chiefs lost. It's the Raiders.
What?
I know.
I'm going to go back and look.
It was on one of those holidays too.
Halloween.
Valentine's.
It was scary. It was scary.
Valentine's Day.
Oh, that's even scarier.
July
than Halloween.
4th. July 4th, I think. Yeah.
It was
on Earth Day. So we put together the off-season stuff because this is it'll get handled when it gets handled week. But just a reminder of what the off-season was like around these two teams as they get ready for this matchup on Sunday.
Who's the last time to beat them, though? Who's the last time to beat the Chiefs? These dudes, you know what I mean? Like, they did that.
Yeah.
So it's okay. It's cool. Like I told them, we're running back. We'll see them again. They got to see us. We got to see them.
Yeah.
And we already given the recipe of how to do it. These guys know what it's like to hate the color red. Like we saw red, we hate red. That's right. Like it was on that kind of level, right? And I told them there's a difference between dislike and hatred. There's a hatred for the Chiefs. Like you got to truly dislike and hate this individual team. 100%. We'll be cool now in the offseason. We see we're going to shake hands. We're out in a place like this. 100%. But between that green lines, between that white lines and the grass, it was on. You got the Jordan rules, and I'm calling now from now on, as long as I'm here, the Patrick Mahomes rules. The Pistons used to whoop his anytime he came to the hole, elbows, filling them, love taps. We touched them. We're in the head mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually. I'm touching you. So I showed those guys Jordan getting his whooped. We're going. We're ready. And then you see Patrick Mahomes looking around. But the best part about that game, Max knows it. We did a great job in the fourth quarter in the red zone on fourth down when they kept going for it. Patrick put his cape on, and these guys wouldn't let go. I mean, they were relentless.
I'm here. I'm here. I'm here. Yeah.
No, we addressed as a team yesterday. We nipped it in the butt. It's over with.
It'll get handled when it gets handled.
We don't spend a lot of time here with puppets, so it's we try to do our work and try to get better.
It'll get handled when it gets handled.
So there you go. That's off season. I'm beep, beep. Yeah.
So when was that speech? Was that after the game on? It turns out
Pierce?
National Pumpkin Pie Day is December 25th. That was the holiday.
I knew it. It was something. I was trying to rack my brain.
pie.
There's a national day for it. It's December 25th. It's one of the more underrated days that people just gloss right over on the calendar.
We get our kids presents for it. We do a whole thing. I take off work.
Yeah, we actually celebrate a sainthood of a guy named Nick. And sometimes we call him Chris.
We put up
there's a clause that goes
a
along with it,
tree,
though.
and I'm not sure. I don't cook. I don't know if that's where the pumpkins come from, but there's a tree.
Yeah.
Involved.
We decorate a tree for National Pumpkin Pie Day. We do it so early too, like a build-up, a lead-up to it.
Yeah.
We do it's called an Advent calendar for National Pumpkin Pie Day with the kids that they count down the days and everything. And so yeah, we it's a whole big deal.
We have whipped cream.
That does
Well,
sound
for most holidays, we have whipped cream.
That does sound familiar because I think I remember the day before actually we did something. We called it National Pumpkin Pie Eve Day, if I'm not
That's right.
mistaken.
Nailed it. Yeah.
Yep, that's right.
We go to church for it because they're the best pie.
Yeah, midnight mass.
Yep.
They serve the best pumpkin pie on
do.
midnight mass because it's fresh. It's midnight. It's that day you get it 1st. Midnight 01. Boom. National Pumpkin Pie Day. Let's have some
You
pumpkin
take your
pie.
family because it's pumpkin.
That's right. Yeah.
Bring your kin.
That's right. All your kin. All kin ready. Anybody named kin or people that are related to you that are kin. Everything is available, and it is welcome on that particular great day. No, that was in the off season. It was like in March.
When
When Antonio Pierce talked about who's the last team to beat this that team, and they were like, "Oh, these guys right here. We got the Mahomes rules, right?"
I was like, as long as I'm here, I'm like, okay, that clock might be ticking.
Right. We got the Mahomes rules. We're gonna hit them and hurt them and be physical and all that other stuff. Like, okay, right.
I mean, look, I think that's a sign of respect. You can actually question, though, should you be doing that in front of the cameras, right? I mean, because all these teams are saying stuff like that to get themselves motivated. Even the champs, right? They're saying that stuff. But Andy Reid really good at keeping that kind of stuff in house. So I'm not surprised to hear that they're saying that stuff. Maybe surprised that it got recorded.
Matt Derrick said Sunday, October 27th is National Tight End Day. So what he's saying is place lots of money on Travis Kelce. And
National Tight End Day.
National Tight End Day.
So do you think it's on the 27th every year, or do they just find a Sunday towards the end of October? Because I don't think it would make sense on like a Tuesday or Wednesday.
Well, in the NFL now, it could be any day.
That's true with the Chiefs.
Any day could be National Tight End Day in the NFL, and it would not matter. They'll find a way to play the game that particular day.
They're actually not even talking about football.
More next.
Hey, everybody. Kansas City's favorite football team is still undefeated after a massive win over the 49ers.
Media Day at T-Mobile. Mick Schaefer hanging out with us here. Sterling Holmes, Dylan Michaels back in the studio. Swim Petro comes your way at 2 o'clock. Talk with Lance Leipold at 6. Best of at 7. Gosh, can't get enough, can you? I asked Cynthia this halfway joking, but I was halfway serious as well because, cut it right down the middle, depending on half full or half empty. Are we seeing all these? The NFL used to have a completely silent NFL trade deadline. It was boring.
Yeah.
It just came and
There
went.
were no trades.
Baseball was awesome, and NFL was like, oh, the trade
NBA, you involved like 5 teams. I still don't understand.
It's like a 25-team trade.
Yes.
Like everybody got something out of this deal. And my question to her was, are we now seeing the first ever entire life generation of fantasy football players that have ascended to GMs? And now the trade deadline is like, no, let's make some trades.
Do this,
let's
guys.
make some deals. We need
What
a
are we
wide
doing?
receiver. We've got a 5th rounder. You need to get rid of this guy. What do we do? Let's go. I mean, these GMs have played fantasy football their whole life now. Now all of a sudden we're wheeling and dealing with the trade deadline. Let's do it.
I think that's maybe a half serious question.
I was half joking, half serious.
I've said Madden also, I think, actually plays an impact too. Fantasy football, Madden, I think both of those are actually legitimately a possibility. And also the other thing is, I think people's GM, the job is not quite as secure. You have to win and win quicker than I think in the past.
Yeah.
So.
Yep, that's probably a bigger part of it. That might be like 95% of it. But I'd like to think more than 0% is the fantasy football aspect of it. Because I know if I was a GM, I'd be like, who are we trading for? All right, let's see. I've got a linebacker that's a 4th string linebacker. You've got a 3rd string wide receiver. We need help here. Let's just make this deal, right? Who cares about salary cap stuff? All right, I do it all the time in my league.
I pick up a different defense every week. Let's try that here.
Can we just trade defenses for this opponent?
It's all
we
based
have
on
this week?
opponent. It's all based on opponent.
They should have streamers where guys they're not on a team for more than 2 weeks at a time, but you can stream guys, and they just go to different teams.
It's called the kicker.
The GM is just waving guys 30 to 53 every week. You're picking up a new 30 to 53. He's got 1 through 29 is set. Maybe it is that. Mick, thank you so much. Will I see you Friday?
You will, if that's all right. If you'll have me.
3 times in 1 week. What am I going to do with
right?
myself?
Man,
I cannot believe it. Cannot believe it. All right, Sterling, great job today.
Yeah, Sterling, it's
over
great.
on-
It was great seeing you in this role. Just
Yeah.
not seeing you.
Great. Program.
That's
next.
not a compliment.